Oh, guys, this is a really depressing moment in my life as I come to the conclusion of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. Yeah, it's been 3 really fun videos breaking down each season of Jimmy Neutron, and this one was the hardest to watch. I couldn't decide if it were a horror, a comedy. Like, Jimmy Neutron went completely off the rails this season in a way that I can't describe, except for the fact I'm about to spend 2 hours doing so. Now, not only do we have returning villains, a Jimmy and Cindy love triangle, and even a few specials along the way, but this is a pretty well-crafted final season. Before we get into it, I'm just gonna note how confusing the episode titling is. Wikipedia has something different, IMDb has something different. Nobody seems to have the consensus on the actual episode order, and I don't know. I'm just gonna do the production codes from the Jimmy Neutron fandom page and the DVD. But I want you guys to think about the finale before we see this whole season. Now, we will leave Jimmy Neutron with a full attack from all the villains from the past. See if Jimmy can take them on. Along the way, we end up with Jimmy and Cindy in a relationship. But you know what? Let's see how we get there. And what makes this season of Jimmy Neutron the most nuts, but also greatest season of all television. So today we're going to be looking into the Jimmy Neutron double-length feature, Attack of the Twunkies. So it starts with Mr. Willoughby. He wrote a song and is going to have the school choir sing it. Library! He tells the class and they're super excited. This guy's always doing the creative stuff, like the broadcast episode, then the play episode. I never realized how many times they try to bring arts into the show, and Jimmy is always like adjacent to it. And these are always so funny. So Cindy is in for the big solo, and she really wants it. I like that she's like so focused on having a theater background. It has a lot of sides to her that aren't just scientific. Meanwhile, Sheen wants to be in the chorus, which is so random to me. He says he's got a great voice and then screams at a kid in the background. You owe me $2.36. Don't make me come over there. And then as Carl and Jimmy talk, he beats up a kid. What the heck? Carl talks to Jimmy about wanting to sniff animals, and the way he words it is actually really weird. I sniff them. But apparently there's something going on in space, and Jimmy wants to be there for it. It's rare, something's going on. So he goes to space. Meanwhile, Hugh is about to go to the grocery store and wants a ride from his son. I don't know if I ever trust my 5th grade son to drop me off at the grocery store. Anyway, he grabs on the rocket and is pretty much going along with Jimmy. Jimmy's like not worried that his dad is probably gonna die this way. He just keeps going and then eventually drops him off at the grocery store. He gets inspired by a dummy in the store, and I can already see where this B-plot is going. So then Jimmy gets to space, and a scary giant monster is about to attack his ship. I assume this is like one of the Twunkies. And I like his little shovel invention. Like, how cool is that? It kind of looks like a lightsaber, but if it were a shovel. They manage to get to the rocket and off the planet safely. Then we find Carl with his dad looking to get a pet. Both of them are extremely allergic to everything, so I don't know what they expect to get. He can't even get a frozen fish because apparently the dad is allergic to ice, which how? How are you allergic to ice? That's water. That's what's in your body. So Carl's pretty disappointed. So then Cindy auditions and is already in the chorus, which is a funny joke. Like, apparently she doesn't have to audition, she just did it for fun. And Mr. Willoughby and Miss Vowell are unnecessarily cruel to Sheen. He tries to sing Home on the Range, and look at the way they bully him.
You see, Sheen, your voice, how shall I put this?
Your voice scares small children!
Miss Vowell, please! Look, Sheen, as chorus master, I know talent.
And that's what you have! No talent!
I love that he mentions he has an Ultra Lord support group here, like it's so funny. And we've set up a lot so far. So Hugh ends up coming home with, instead of groceries, a dummy. And Judy recognizes this as a really irresponsible thing to do, because it is. Hugh makes him talk and he's really funny, and I am excited for where this is about to go.
Hey there, dollface! What do you say we ditch the dead wood and go make some trouble?
Although poor Mrs. Neutron. So Libby tries to get people into Greystar. What is she, like their manager? Like, it's just this band she listens to and she's promoting. Like, I think they could promote themselves. And she's at the fountain that we haven't seen since the shorts that were before the Jimmy Neutron show. Like, Jimmy and Cindy had both of their dogs fighting here at this location, which is a fun throwback. So Jimmy returns to his lab, and Carl and Sheen are pretty depressed, and they talk about how they got there, and Jimmy's like, how did you get in? And they're like, oh, we just have a bag of your hair. And I guess that's just normal for them. Jimmy's like, what? But it's fair because Jimmy doesn't really care about what they went through and just bulldozes their stories and tells them what happened in space, which is rude. And then he finds a Twonkie, apparently one of the first animals that Carl isn't allergic to.
I sniff them.
Okay, so this little Twonkie's gonna solve their problems. I like that. Jimmy says to only keep it for 24 hours because then they have to head back. He tries to dismiss doing this at all by saying it's a violation of science protocol, which sounds smart, but I don't know if there's science protocol as a general thing. Then Sheen comes back, tries to sing again, and the teachers laugh at him again. He comes dressed with a mustache, and they mention Bulby, but he hasn't come yet, so this is weird that it's in season 3. Carl brings the Twonkies to class, and everybody wants to be near them because they're super cute, and they try to get closer to Carl, which has never happened. And then it starts to puke up other little babies like it. Aww. And Nick is like, I could use them to practice my hair products. Nick, that's animal testing. You can't do that. Everybody is a Twonkie, and they act like parents, which is really fun to see. Like, Cindy's like, oh, we're gonna get you into a good kindergarten, which is like, even if they were their pets, like, you can't treat them like a 2-year-old. And Sheen is still upset about the choir. I never realized how into it he was. Carl sings to the Twonkie,
And stretching.
and it starts to mutate. It turns out singing triggers it. Oh no. Oh yeah, because the choir thing that's about to happen. Okay, this is about to be bad. Slowly, one by one, the Twonkies all turn crazy as everybody starts to sing. They complain to Jimmy, which it's not his fault. He actually warned all you guys about this and said you shouldn't have them. And Butch says, just as I was learning to love again, which is funny. So they have to shut down all music, with Libby saying, you can't stop the music. Sheen is still depressed, and turns out his singing doesn't affect his Twonkie because he's so bad at it. Oh my gosh, poor Sheen. I like the side of Sheen that's like insecure. Like, this is a lot of cool character dynamics that I never expected to have. Whenever I hear Sheen talk about his future, I think about Planet Sheen, which is almost like a traumatic event because I'm like, wow, this kid doesn't really have a future because he ends up in space for so long.
Except summer school. Trust me.
What? So Jimmy's like, okay, we have to shut down all the music in town, get these Twonkies out of here, because after 24 hours, they're gonna be stuck here for a year. Wow, that would suck. That's like me every birthday. The boy band Grey Star shows up looking for Libby, and they decide to just play to nothing, triggering the Twonkies. Oh my gosh, Jet Fusion is still in theaters. I like that it's on the marquee. And the Twonkies are really funny in the theater, lol. So the Twonkies are attacking the town, and Carl and Jimmy get a giant vacuum to suck them all up. They attack Grey Star, and Libby's like, sorry for attacking you. And they're like, it's okay, we play at colleges, which is really funny. So as Grey Star plays, they think it's all over and it's a little celebration event, but it turns out a Twonkie the size of the one earlier in the episode attacks Jimmy and everybody. Turns out it's not over. Oh, gosh. So Sheen comes back, and turns out he didn't know any of this was going on, and he's been singing all day, so there's no way the Twonkies get upset by singing. Sheen's so bad at singing, it's almost anti-singing.
Ultra Lord, fighting crime with his ultra sword.
And he named his Twonkie Liver Snap, which is so weird. So they use Sheen's singing as a weapon to fully take down the Twonkies. He refers to the dummy as Jimmy's brother. Like, did the dummy even matter in it? Oh, it ends up being needed for the rocket. Okay, cool. It's relevant. In the end, Grey Star even comes back and says, we beat him! And Carl's like, you didn't do anything, which is so funny. Then we finally get the final performance at the library, and Sheen gets his solo, although we can't hear it. And Cindy's solo is canceled. Wow, how is that a happy ending?
Bombastic side-eye.
Oh wait, speaking of happy endings, it's not, because at the end you see a little Twonkie get away, which is more than just a bad ending. Like, it's supposed to be there for years at a time. I know this special is unsubtly referencing the 1984 film Gremlins.
There just might be a gremlin in your house.
And its sequel, The Gremlins 2, New Batch. And a lot of the inspiration is clear here, but I like that it fits in the realm of Jimmy Neutron really well. If we did view this as a season 3 premiere, which I still consider it, I think it's really effective. Like, we get to see a new side of all the characters, we get a new opening intro, and we even get moments where we see the characters at completely different angles, which we didn't ask for, but it's so happily welcomed. I think that's why this show gets appraised for its characters. They are so dynamic, and you learn about them every time they speak, which is like a very theatrical trope. Like they say on theater shows, every line is insight into a character, and this is definitely what they're doing here. To believe that the people who made Jimmy Neutron, like this little studio in Texas,
Hi, I'm Paul.
put so much effort into this and made it just as good as the other shows on Nickelodeon is astounding to me. Jimmy Neutron is still continuing to be one of my favorite Nicktoons, and I feel like I only appreciate it more as time goes on. But what did you guys think? Did you like this special, or did you think it wasn't as good as like Win, Lose, Kaboom or Jet Fusion? I would love to know down in the comments. What's your favorite Jimmy Neutron episode? So next we have Season 3, Episode 3, Lights, Camera, Action. The kids at Retroville Middle School tease Jimmy for having no creativity because he's kind of a science and math genius.
Remember his awful short story?
Call it fate, Ursula said, finishing her pastrami sandwich. No, Lance said. Call it binomial expansion.
Fair enough, Jimmy, you can't be good at everything. They have an example of how he lacks creativity in this funny montage.
And remember his painting?
And apparently the last one is so bad, the kids can't even say it.
And remember his opera?
Don't even!
That was horrible!
Yeah, don't go there.
I don't know what that could possibly mean. I like that the whole premise is wrapped around a Hollywood screenplay contest that the kids want to enter, because obviously show business is always ironic when it's in a show. So Jimmy attempts to write a script to prove that he can be creative. Oh my gosh, can you imagine being a kindergartner? Apparently it's so good that a notable movie director comes in town to shoot it. We don't know who this guy is. His name is Quentin Smithy or something. I don't know how you get a name that's more film producer than that. And he kind of makes Jimmy like a spectacle and poses with him in front of the whole town and announces that the movie is going to be shot right then and there, with the unpaid townsfolk making up of the crew. Wow, this must be how real film is. This is how real film is gonna have to be if we want to save money and actually keep it going. So it's clear that the director Quentin is not gonna do the script how Jimmy intended.
Mr. Smithy, this scene is supposed to take place on a ship in the Atlantic Ocean.
And we just kind of get a glimpse of him taking Jimmy's movie to life. I like how it's kind of the parody of the egoism of a filmmaker. Like, it's so much more different than the ego of somebody like Jimmy Neutron who has science and math. And why are creative people sometimes more egotistical than the people with logistical knowledge? I think it's not fair.
I think this Smithy guy knows what he's doing.
Of course he does. You guys just don't know how true artists work.
Jimmy says, and it's clear that his whole thing is he has to be a genius at everything. It's the perfect flaw. It's worked for 2 seasons so far, and it's definitely a good motivation for this character to want his screenplay to be good. So he's just not going to admit that this is going terribly. Hugh, in the meantime, keeps trying to insist that he's an actor on the film to Quentin Smithy, and he keeps dismissing him as the donut boy. But Hugh literally does such a good job at turning around everything Quentin says and assuming it's an acting direction.
You go jump in a lake.
Yeah, to practice for the big underwater scene? Gotcha!
He's like, oh, my character would be running on the side of the road. Oh, my character would be getting donuts. Like, it's just such a funny concept. I know they did this similar episode in SpongeBob where the characters were trying to make a movie and probably on every other TV show imaginable, but Jimmy Neutron does this really well. Like, I definitely think this is one of the best ones. It has everything from actual movie stakes to a flawed main character and even a dirty twist. But we'll get to that. So they're on the rooftop shooting, and Jimmy's confused because apparently the scene is supposed to be shot on a snowy mountain. So like, why are they on the roof with these bungee cords? I would be terrified. The kids are all dressed in black with strings attached. And what is the budget for this movie? Like, why are the kids the ones in the main character roles? Like, Jimmy said the premise of the movie, and it doesn't really have to do with them. So after the scene fails and the kids are about to literally hit the ground, Jimmy manages to save them. Quentin pretends to be sympathetic in this really funny mumble of an apology.
Are you all right? I feel horrible, just terrible. How could that happen? What a shame. Too bad. So glad no one got hurt. Accidents will happen. Isn't movie making thrilling? Okay, moving on. Next scene.
Which seems very Hollywood, and he clearly doesn't care. Jimmy finds himself defending the director as much as he can, because obviously if this guy's not real, it would mean his script wasn't actually good, and his friends would be right, so obviously Jimmy needs to keep this going. Scene after scene, Jimmy's script is further from his intention, and they're put in a roller coaster this time. And apparently there's supposed to be a kiss between him and Cindy, but it's crazy how far this is going off the rails. Literally, they're on a roller coaster, and they nearly get killed. Doesn't even matter that there's supposed to be a kiss. I don't know how they casually put these kids in the movie. The kids end up getting suspicious of Smithy and actually ask Jimmy to look into it, but they can't find anything, which they actually realize is really suspicious, but Jimmy's gonna keep defending it. Then we later learn that Quentin Smithy, alone in his trailer, comes out as
Professor Calamitous.
It's clear his intention is to put Jimmy and his friends in danger, which is a theme for this season a lot. I just don't know why this can't be like another villain. Like, why does it have to be Calamitous mostly acting as other villains that seemingly are interesting at first? Like when they had that great egg heist and he was that Chinese lady, like I don't know why he has to be the one. And something super unexpected, they break out into a musical number. It's kind of like a parody of the show Chicago or some jazz show. I just can't believe how good Jimmy Neutron is at doing musical numbers. Like this is a crazy coincidence. Even Hugh partakes in a solo himself.
Donut boy, that's me. Yeah.
And they really get to parody a lot of movie tropes throughout just this 20-minute episode, and it's really impressive. I love that this is in the 3rd season. Like, they're giving it their all, and this show is just so brilliant at how it lays out all its plots. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Play episode when they were putting on that production of, like, Macbeth, just because of the Jimmy and his friends trying to do something creative and getting in danger is just so topical for them. Jimmy and Carl are gonna have to duel in the last scene, which is a lot similar to that Play episode with him and Bowlby. And I don't know what's going on with their outfits here. It seems like the director's just throwing random things in here like, you're a wizard, you're this, you're this. And Jimmy's like, it's supposed to take place in Snowy Mountain. So we don't know what Calamitous' real plan is, aside from just showing up at different scenes and trying to hurt the kids. I can't imagine how much extra work everybody in the town had to do to get these intricate film sets, but it seems like it's not worth it. I think Professor Calamitous could have put his efforts in something way more convoluted. Jimmy notices that the director doesn't finish anything, which is super funny because he's a film director, lol, and realizes that since he can't finish anything,
It's Professor Calamitous.
at the last second though, Smithy sends in a giant snake to finally get rid of Jimmy and his friends. But luckily, and surprisingly, Hugh comes in thinking he's a character that's supposed to defeat this snake, and that is how the plot gets solved, all in itself. Hugh is so delusional that he thinks he's playing a character defeating Professor Calamitous.
I bet this is the scene where Donut Boy saves the day.
And actually does and saves all the kids and takes all Jimmy's suggestions as acting notes, which is so funny. So Hugh saves the day and the kids agree that Jimmy is not creative. He apologizes and admits that his script wasn't good, and they end up doing the version of the movie that everybody else wanted to do and kind of bothered Jimmy to do the whole time, which is definitely fair. It should be more of a team effort. And the movie is so funny because they're in their normal clothes the whole time. Like, they got changed for all the scenes they were gonna do in Jimmy's movie, but here I guess they're playing themselves in these crazy locations. I mean, not a single costume could be seen. Like, I don't even know. They had costumes in their musical scene, for God's sake. I guess the moral of the story is anybody can make a movie.
I command you all to dance! Dance, I say! Dance!
Next, we have episode 4, Fundmonium. Jimmy and Carl and Sheen are playing superheroes. Oh my gosh, it's not the Nmen episode again, is it? I mean, that was cool because they actually had superpowers. Here, it just looks like they're having a good time. They use super bouncy shoes, which is kind of cool. Jimmy's inventions really up the stakes when these guys are playing their games. I wish I had him as a friend. They land at Jimmy's house and they learn that their house is being sold. Oh my gosh, already? Like, first of all, it takes a lot of work to sell a house. I don't know how they just suddenly have a sign up and then they know they're leaving soon. Jimmy approaches them about it and Judy seems depressed.
That means our lives are ruined. I mean...
And unwilling to say anything except that they're moving. Like, we don't know why, we don't know how, we don't know if... I don't get it. Apparently they're moving to
Dairyville.
Didn't Fairly Odd Parents do an episode about them moving to a town where milk was hypnotizing them, and it was kind of a cow-centric episode? I don't know what it is with Nickelodeon cartoons and all these cow-centric episodes. It's kind of a weird gimmick to me. Was that a 2000s thing? Did we all have cows? So Jimmy opens up the idea that he should just switch jobs and do something in the town. I don't know why Hugh would not have thought of that, or Judy, before they decided to sell their house, but whatever. And I do like this trope of what happens if the main character moves episode. Like, Jimmy Neutron is not a show that you would expect to do it, but I like that they have its own Jimmy Neutron twist on it. iCarly's done it, Hannah Montana's done it. It's just such a topical episode choice. It's clear that the stakes are really high because Jimmy would not want to leave behind his friends, or even his lab. Like, how would he recreate that anywhere else? So Jimmy suggests Hugh goes for a toy inventor job he finds in the paper. Oh, that's cute. Like, people read the paper. Jimmy tells him he has a great imagination, which invites a hilarious line from Hugh.
But I do occasionally talk to Bing Bing, a giant invisible panda.
See, you've got a great imagination!
Imagination?
I mean, Hugh's lines are just crazy funny. Look at all this.
Intense UV radiation has made me delusional. I'm a monkey. Don't tell the others, but you're my favorite. Hey, boys! Look at me! I'm Cocky the Rooster Man! Cock-a-doodle-doo! Cock-a-doodle-doo! Hey, mother hen. Want to have a peckin' party?
He is such a good character. Moments later, he makes a terrifying dummy with the head of a duck and a doll body. It looks like a horror movie, like worse than Annabelle. Jimmy knows it's terrible, so he takes the doll and invents it to be incredible, have a cool superpower like how he had shoes at the beginning of this episode. This way, he can assure that his dad will get hired. Oh, we get a quick cameo from the nanobots. They want their time of jail to be over soon, so they're trying to do favors for Jimmy as he goes in and out of his lab. I feel bad for these guys. Meanwhile, Hugh goes to the meeting with Baby Quacker, and the toy destroys the meeting room. It's crazy, and it seems like it didn't work until we get to the next scene. Hugh literally announces that he is the next new toy inventor. First off, how in the world, with what you just showed me, would Hugh be qualified to be the next toy inventor? I mean, I get it. It was cool, but like, he destroyed the office. That's not a red flag for you. Like, if you're hiring an employee, like, if he quits, I don't know if I would trust this guy in my workplace. Meanwhile, Carl and Sheen are trying to replace Jimmy pretty quickly. Like, he didn't even leave yet, guys. And they try to use Bolby instead, but he's the butt of the joke, and it's funny because he's just so different that he doesn't understand what any of the other kids are doing in their role play of these superheroes. But he's kind of funny. He takes on this persona of Kebab Boy or Kebab Man. I don't know. It's just really funny.
Justice! Let Batman tremble at my powerful lamb kebab! It's gonna be a long childhood.
Let's see that lamb kebab.
Leave it alone!
The nanobots consistently bother Jimmy to let him out, and he just keeps denying them. Are they gonna be in this episode more? I don't remember this. So apparently, in order to keep this job, Hugh is going to have to
Come up with a new toy design every day for the rest of my life.
Oh my god, what? That is like working somebody to the bone. So now Jimmy has to make a new invention every day for his father, or he can't stay in Retroville, which sucks because obviously he wants to stay with his friends, but it looks like he's gonna have to take on a full-time job. We get a fun montage of Hugh inventing a bunch of stupid stuff, and it's like, how in the world would Jimmy turn these two objects around to be a good toy? And it just keeps happening. Like, Jimmy is a genius. These montages just remind me that Jimmy is one of the coolest characters ever, because his genius actually helps him help other people. And oh my gosh, this song, listen to this. This could only be a copy of that song Hey Ya from the 2000s, and it's clear because they didn't change that much. Even the vocal line is like used as an instrument here. Like, come on. Suddenly Jimmy can't make one of the toys, and he's exhausted. He's been doing it every day now, apparently. Hugh makes this thing called the Malibu Death Machine, a tank with a Barbie doll head, and whew, I think people would buy this nowadays. I would. This is kind of epic. But Jimmy falls asleep, and Hugh accidentally takes the toy before Jimmy could finish it. In the meantime, he even takes the nanobots that were begging to be let out earlier and uses them as batteries for this thing. So in the meantime, these nanobots are staying inside the toy. Hugh presents in the meeting room again with his new toy, and the nanobots actually make this tank go huge to supersize, and the meeting room is destroyed, which actually, after the first time you got a job getting at this company, so I don't know why this wouldn't get you at least a promotion. Like, they clearly respect somebody that destroys their habitat. But yeah, it's the nanobots taking over, using this giant tank to go out of the office and even destroy the town. They're shooting candy at everybody, and I don't know how this is a real threat. And it kind of reminds me of this episode Make Room for Daddy-O, like the other Jimmy and Hugh episode. We don't see a lot of Carl and Sheen except for the B plot, lot, and I like it when it's Jimmy and his dad. Jimmy is such a straight man with his genius, and Hugh is such a dummy that it gives me that opposite roommates vibe. Jimmy wakes up and sees the news and is freaking out. He gets a brain blast and realizes that he can actually use the first invention, baby quackers, and the remote for that to stop the tank. And then we keep cutting to Bulby and Sheen and Carl as superheroes pretending to do whatever, and this is so unnecessary.
Of justice! I have candy in the wrong places.
Oh wait, it's not. Jimmy asks for Carl and Sheen's help, and it's perfect because they miss Jimmy so much even though he didn't move yet. So with help, they actually managed to get the tank to pee on the street? I think it's urine, okay? Causing the entire thing to disrupt. And that's how this episode kind of ends. Like, I don't know, this was a really good one. I don't remember it super well, but I am so happy the last season does get another Hugh-centric episode. He is such a revitalizing character to this series, and I don't know what I would do without him. It's fun how the A and B plot tie in together so well, and Carl and Sheen even jumping in at the last second to help. Like, this episode has all of everything Jimmy Neutron should be. They're so good at making this series at this point. It just ends with Jimmy, Carl, and Sheen happy to be playing together once again. Apparently, because of all the damages done to the other cars, Hugh can go back to his old job. Aw, it's really sweet that we have a good ending. And I like so far that all these episodes are double length. Like, there's no 10-minute Jimmy Neutron episodes. Like, it gives us enough breathing room to see Jimmy's best and worst sides, as well as giving each of the side characters a little bit of time to revolve around it. This show is just so good, and I'm so happy to be going back through it, and it's so much easier to make the retrospectives with less episodes, trust me. So the next episode, Stranded, is an interesting one. I would say it is the most confirming any Jimmy Neutron episode is ever about Jimmy and Cindy's love story. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but when I was little, I used to be a little turned off to this episode because I felt like it was definitely not Jimmy Neutron, not what the show was supposed to focus on. But looking back, I'm like, this is such an incredible episode that they were so smart to weave into the series and give a little bit of closure to the people who looked at this as like a more serialized show. Like, if you paying attention to television, you probably like Easter eggs subtly hidden that actually rewards the person for watching and paying attention to the whole show. So it starts off with Jimmy and Cindy in one of their usual fights. Sheen breaks the fourth wall by saying like the adventure should start any minute.
Just a little longer, Carl. Our adventure should start any minute.
Jimmy and Cindy's fight goes to the hover car as they actually try to prove one another's argument, which I forget what it even is. Sheen asks if they're gonna admit that they're in love yet, and it's so funny to think that everybody knows but them, especially by how much they argue. It's like, you definitely would get tired of like your friends if they were like hiding their feelings for each other this long. And pretty quickly in the episode, Jimmy and Cindy fall out of the hover car. And since Sheen, Libby, and Carl don't really know how to work it, they're left stranded on this island. It's clear right from the get-go that they can only go so far with arguing all the time, and the fact that nobody else is around really makes it not valuable. Like, you guys are just focused on surviving at this point. Like, stop worried about fighting any more than you already are.
Look, Cindy, I'm not any happier about this than you are, but if we're gonna be stuck here together, we shouldn't squander our energy fighting. So what do you say? Truce?
Truce.
Good.
Each of them gets a chance to save one another from sudden danger, which actually confirms their care for one another, and it's really sweet. It's definitely like a metaphor for like giving and taking in relationships and how important it is to maintain that. And since they're not dating and they're so rude to each other, that could only mean that if they were to date, that it would have to be the opposite. I'm not sure if you guys agree with me, but usually your relationships change for the better if you decided to get closer with somebody, as opposed to breaking up with somebody or somebody that you just kind of stay on a level playing field with. Whatever, that makes sense to me. It doesn't have to make sense to you guys. So meanwhile, Carl, Sheen, and Libby are still trying to find Cindy and Jimmy, but they don't even really know how to work the hover car. In fact, they even crash it into the ocean themselves, so everybody is stranded in this one. So it's funny to think that Jimmy and Cindy actually start embracing this new lifestyle. Like, they appreciate the finer things and the small things in life a lot more when they're forced to live here. Assuming that they're never going to get home ever again, they choose happiness, which is kind of nice. Crazy crazy to think that these characters have to go through this much in order to have a good time. Like, their lives have to be so bad that they're stranded and isolated from everybody they know and care about to really be happy. And it's interesting because that is kind of how most of us would be as humans, since we like interacting with each other. Having it taken away just makes you appreciate what you do have more. Jimmy and Cindy, I swear, develop a relationship. Like, they might as well be dating at this point because they just take care of each other. They make an entire civilization just out of the two of them. And it's sweet watching Jimmy be protective and actually care about what Cindy thinks, and Cindy actually mushing over Jimmy. Like, it seems like it really adds value to their life to care for each other in that way, which makes it so sad when Carl, Sheen, and Libby actually show up to save them. Jimmy was about to give her this really rare pearl, which is so sweet, Jimmy. Jimmy is like slowly opening up to love in his life, despite being in like 5th grade. They're finally able to get back in the hover car, get it working, and then head out. Obviously, Cindy's a little disappointed because they were having such a good time, and Libby is suspicious that they did form a relationship already, but they're too ashamed to really come out to anybody about it.
Alright, girls, spill. What's up between you and Jimmy? Up! Nothing's up! What makes you think something's up? Oh, well, that's not... Oh, I see, you thought... It's a funny story, really.
We lead the episode on like one last wink and acknowledgement that Jimmy had a good time and really liked spending it with her. But all is back to normal when they end at the candy bar and Jimmy and Cindy are fighting once again. But this time it doesn't end with them fighting, it ends with them agreeing to do something together. And they end up becoming friends pretty much. A very sweet episode, definitely makes it worth watching, especially if you care about Jimmy and Cindy. I feel like it does really good to have an episode this direct in the 3rd season, especially if it's getting ready to start slowing down. I can see what people say when they like regard this season as something that's like a really good deep part of animation, because unlike SpongeBob or Fairly OddParents, like we don't delve this deep into characters. Their wants and desires don't really come priority to the episodic structure. It's nice to see when a story is worth doing that. So this is essentially Jimmy Neutron's Young Shelton episode, Jimmy Goes to College, something you would expect to have happened in the 1st season, but just never occurred yet. So Jimmy's smarts are taken to an entirely new level. We start in the class and everybody's tired of Jimmy's genius. He critiques Miss Fowle's scheduling, which is kind of bold, Jimmy. A professor shows up and says he wants to recruit Jimmy for college, and of course, Jimmy is all in on that. At first, his parents aren't really into the idea, but then they eventually agree. Jimmy jetpacks into class late, which, Jimmy, you cannot be late to college. And turns out, he's not special. Everybody has a jetpack, which is nuts because this was the 2000s. And even today, people don't have jetpacks. I feel like the proper equivalent would probably be a hoverboard. You know those hoverboards people take from city to city? Jimmy's pretty much insecure because everybody's smart, and now he has to rely on his social awareness, which is interesting because Jimmy's never been put in a position where there was a bunch of people like him. And anybody in that position could feel really embarrassed. Like going to college for an art degree. I feel like everybody's there for the same thing, and it's hard to wrap your head around not being special, especially for Jimmy's sake. Like, he's been a genius. But do you think everybody else in this class is like willing to go to space or save the world? Because I know Jimmy's smart just like the rest of them, but Jimmy does have a lot more to give than they do. Everybody's impressed by Jimmy, and he makes an enemy because this nerd gets jealous. I think his name is Seymour? So he sabotages Jimmy's jetpack, making him like really embarrassed in front of everybody. Oh, I love a new enemy.
Clueless little dweeb. I'll have him running back to mommy inside a week.
Meanwhile, Hugh and Judy miss Jimmy a lot more, and it's like exactly like college life would actually be. Like the parents already missing them, and I don't know why Goddard didn't go with him, because Goddard's still at home. Hugh uses the extra time to start a flea circus, which is ridiculous.
I think I'll call you Jimbo. You can be the Jimster. Oh, and you are definitely Jim Jamboree.
So then Jimmy's late to class again because of his jetpack, and it's clear he's not fitting in. Probably partially because of the sabotage from Seymour.
Oh, just find a lab partner, Mr. Neutron.
Jimmy partners with Seymour, and Seymour sabotages the science fluid. And then Dean Cain comes in, and apparently he's the only teacher. He's literally teaching every class at this point. And then we go back to Hugh having a funeral for the old fleas, and Carl and Sheen are like trying to save Jimmy from college. They seem to have no purpose outside of Jimmy. Like, where are their hobbies? Every time Jimmy can't be there for them, they seem to not know what to do with their lives.
My flea!
him!
Why? Merciful heavens! Why?
So Judy and Hugh pretend like everything is going well when Jimmy gives them a call from college. Jimmy pretends he's doing well too, keeping them all in the same situation, even though neither of them are having a good time. The nerd Seymour shows up to where Jimmy lives, which is this closet, which is so sad, and I'm scared what he's gonna do. He ends up challenging Jimmy to listen to what he says, because he will guide him through college. Then they bring him to like this cult. Is this like a parody of like a frat house? It definitely is. They're insisting he does everything that's a part of the quote-unquote ritual, and he's resistant but gives in. Exactly how college works. They convince him to streak through the college lab, which I don't know why Jimmy, being so logical, would think this is necessary, but I guess since he doesn't have the social awareness, it makes him a lot more of an outlier. It's really funny because of course the dean has an important lady visit and Jimmy runs in naked.
I'm streaking! I'm streaking!
Naked boy! Naked boy! Neutron!
Oh my gosh. He ends up getting actually expelled. And we have another flea funeral with Hugh. This bit actually is pretty funny because it's like, of course he would do that with his free time. It's not like he has a job. Jimmy eventually learns that Seymour did sabotage him. He asks Carl and Sheen to come help, which I bet they're ecstatic.
Toga! Toga! Toga!
So Carl, Jimmy, and Sheen turn invisible, sneak into the room, and try to prove that he was sabotaged. He brings in dangerous molecules that he actually introduced at the beginning of the episode. And when they come in for a presentation that essentially is Seymour copying Jimmy, he takes his ideas about the molecules. The molecules end up being unpredictable and destroy the entire classroom until Jimmy is able to use glue attached to a piece of wood and catch the molecules, saving the day, which I don't know how that's gonna work. Jimmy gets a check for $1,000? What? And he decides he should go back to school because he's not really ready for college, which is fair. It's like cool to be good enough to go to college.
Toga! 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 Toga!
But I feel like the whole point of the school system is to kind of weave your way into the social circles, like get to know the people around you and learn how to work in a society. And we forget the parts that really matter that are not worth skipping, and it's that like fitting into your group, like doing projects, like that's what really makes it work. College is just an expansion of that, and if you didn't do the first couple years, it's nuts. Young Sheldon is similar in that they have a comically young kid going to college, and Sheldon sees a lot of things that kids are not supposed to see, but the biggest issue is that he's missing out on his social development because not going through an actual high school or middle school just puts you at a disadvantage to the rest of the world. It's so funny. I feel like Jimmy walked so young Sheldon can run because this is just such an impressive episode, and I feel like this is inevitably what young Sheldon entirely is. So then we have Nmen. This is one of the really fun episodes. I always liked watching this when I was little because it's those shows that have the main characters get superpowers in some supernatural way, and seeing their personalities dialed to 100 because of the fact that they have the ability to use powers now. I don't know, it's just a cool concept. We start with Jimmy and Cindy fighting on one of the ships, and it just seems like they're fighting all the time now. Like, they're clearly getting tired of putting their ego aside and actually caring about one another. They have to put up this whole facade. There's like a slow motion sequence as the ship enters this like really weird storm of rays, and everybody's doing something like really specific before they hit this ray. Like Jimmy and Cindy are arm wrestling, Libby is using invisible cream for her zits, Carl's burping, and Sheen is just looking like a weirdo. They land into Earth in a crashing manner, pretty much assuming that this storm knocked them into the galaxy. They're surprised to find that Jimmy's changed colors completely, like his hair is a new weird shade of green and his skin is a lot more tan than we're used to, and something is clearly up.
And you just turned orange? How lame is that?
It's not lame. Maybe my cells store massive amounts of vitamin C or something.
He does have a pleasing fruity aroma.
Immediately we see that they're gifted with superpowers.
So I'm super strong. Well, that doesn't mean I'm gonna hold this thing all day.
Sheen runs to Japan and back in 1 second.
We've all been endowed with incredible power, and I say we use that power to attack Tokyo! Guys, come on, pick up the pace!
And it's very clear that they all have an ability.
Open your eyes, girlfriend. I'm right in front of you. Yeah! Hey, I was invisible. Cool.
I don't feel so good.
You know, Milwaukee has very clean restrooms.
They decide to use these powers to their advantage and actually fight crime together as the Nmen, which is like this Avengers type group where they're all going to work together to keep good. We see that the Nmen are just doing things that barely help civilians. Like, they're not fighting crime, they're just like accusing Sam of throwing out trash at the candy bar. They're essentially a nuisance to society, making things worse like car pileups and causing like all this destruction to the town.
Go, kitty! Kitty, get down! Glad you're getting the hang of it.
So obviously the government gets involved, and we see the army guy that is usually involved in government-related things in the Jimmy Neutron universe taking away all the kids because of their superpowers. It's clear that the amount of power they have is not welcome, so they put him in a tube, and since Jimmy doesn't have any ability like the rest of the people, like everybody can run or burp or turn invisible, but Jimmy is only able to be Tanner. Like, for some reason, they don't even think it's necessary to kidnap him either.
That's a good one. You better head back to the pumpkin patch, little fella. All right, men, move them on.
They're locked away at this secret facility by the government, and Jimmy is essentially getting angry that he can never fit in with them as superheroes. He gets so angry, he inevitably turns into the Hulk, and it turns out that's what Jimmy's superpower was, is that he can turn into the Hulk when he gets mad. He shows up and threatens the town once again, proving that these superpowers are just no good for them. Like, I wouldn't trust 5th graders with superpowers either. Like, what are they gonna do with them? Carl's outfit looks kind of cool, though. I like that it's kind of like a little disco vibe to it. The government doesn't worry about the super kids anymore because of Jimmy's rampages, and so they all try to take down Jimmy. But luckily his friends show up to try to support him and not let the government take him. But in doing so, they need to defeat him themselves. And it's really scary to see Jimmy like this, like have no empathy or morals in this moment because he's just angry. And seeing the kids get weaker and literally start to faint is almost kind of depressing. Jimmy snaps out of his Hulk-like form when he notices them suffering so bad, especially Cindy, which is a nice reference to their relationship once again in this season. Filled with guilt, he's able to lose his anger and turn back into his normal Jimmy self, and happy to know that he did have a superpower all along. They apologize to the entire community because they literally wrecked Retroville, these poor kids. There's even a sign that says save our mutated children. So like they're worried that like these kids are just broken now. Jimmy's able to announce that the powers will go away inevitably and everybody's happy. The end. So this next one is by far one of the coolest episodes of television I've probably ever seen. So Jimmy Neutron did basic story tropes of characters meeting their future selves, but check out how well they executed this. We start with a really funny side plot of Jimmy teaching flowers to beat each other up, which I don't know what that's about. And everybody's getting ready to go to Libby's birthday party. They've got presents, and this is the most generic wrapping I've ever seen in my life. It's almost insulting if somebody got that for me. Jimmy shows Carl and Sheen his new invention, and Sheen says somebody already invented the arch. LOL, Sheen. Got him. So it turns out this device actually is a gateway to the future. At first, they could just look inside of it. They see that Sheen's a male model, which is kind of random. Carl wins a competition for llamas, and Jimmy wins the Nobel Prize. And apparently, Jimmy has the ability to allow them to walk into it, which is insanely cool. Apparently the perfume is what made the flowers fight, and it makes somebody mad with power, Jimmy explains. Jimmy, Carl, and Sheen show up early to the party to drop off their presents when they go back in time, 15 years into the future. They get to the future and it is not anything like they expected. The glimpse they got made it seem like they're in this big paradise, but it turns out that it's really dark and dingy and filled with cops, but not just normal cops, AI cops. No, I'm just kidding, robot cops, but seriously, AI. The robot tells Carl, Sheen, and Jimmy that apparently they already broken some laws. They find out that the leader of this dystopian society is actually Libby. What? Spoiler alert. I love how they just jumped in from the past and the only thing they're getting in trouble for is not listening to the scheduled programming. As they're about to get in trouble, Jimmy escapes on Goddard with Carl and Sheen. Jimmy realizes that this is all because of the gift that Libby is mad with power, because that perfume from earlier.
They yelled at me.
And what could possibly have happened to change the outcome of the future we saw earlier? What did we do before we left?
Well, I woke up with a hollow feeling, which went away after I ate plenty of bacon.
Closer to our departure, Carl. I'll play back this morning's lab footage.
Ow! Ow! Flower cut! I cut it out! Ow!
If you'd have been there, it wouldn't seem quite so unmanly.
Oh no! Carl, you grabbed the megalomanium!
I was under fire. It was chaos.
Yeah, Megalahuna what now?
The stuff that made the flower power crazy!
The thing that got the flowers to fight is making Libby evil, and is making Libby a dictator, forcing everybody to listen to Greystar, the band that has the character designed reused in a bunch of episodes. So they escape to Jimmy's lab, finding future Jimmy. And you know what? Past Jimmy is not happy about it. He finds out this guy's priorities are all messed up, and he's even married to Cindy, which bothers him more than anything, which is a good sign of denial because we know Jimmy has a crush on Cindy. We learn the future wasn't exactly what he expected. Apparently Sheen is just taking care of Carl, and Carl is running from the law. And I guess everybody lives together in this world? Of course, if I was Jimmy, I would be super depressed. Like, this glimpse into the future is really scary. And a lot of shows have done this trope, and I feel like they've not done it as emotionally taxing as Jimmy had done. The robot is like the biggest enemy, and he is out to get Carl. But Jimmy has the idea of getting him off the archway and convincing future Jimmy to help them escape. It's so funny hearing Jimmy give advice to his future self. He's like so condescending. He's like, maybe you could fix your life. Oh, Jimmy. So as they finally get the portal to work to go back in time, the cop shows up with future Jimmy, Carl, and Sheen attacking him. So they jump back into the portal to go back in time. But bad news, the robot gets in too. So Carl, Sheen, and Jimmy run to Libby's house and try to destroy the present to stop this terrible future from happening. It's so funny because they're constantly like trashing the party, and Libby keeps trying to stop them, which is fair, but she doesn't understand the weight of what they're doing, so she's essentially their biggest antagonist. Greystar ends up playing at Libby's birthday, which is really funny because the robot falls for their trance because in his future he's used to being forced to listen to Greystar. And of course Libby would enforce this, like being into music as much as she is. I love that concept. Jimmy, Carl, and Sheen end up destroying all the presents to stop this future from happening, only to learn that Cindy put Jimmy's gift in another room. Real disrespectful, Cindy. As the robot's about to get Jimmy, he tosses the present at him and it vaporizes it, causing him to disappear, but Libby to be extremely furious. She knows that these guys go on adventures. I don't know why she can't just give him the benefit of the doubt here. They end literally trying to make it up to Libby, and that's kind of how it ends. This episode surprised me with how much I liked it, and having not remembered it. It's season 3, episode 9, I guess. My Big Fat Spy Wedding. So we start with a hidden figure, like a ninja that we don't really know who it is, but it looks like the outline of Beautiful Gorgeous. It goes to sneak in on Jet Fusion, who is asleep, and we kind of cut away from that. Jimmy has his robo-walker out, and he's trying to teach it how to give him dance moves, which is kind of random. It reminds me a lot of the Pants Machine from season 1. So Jimmy's interrupted and abruptly taken to the secret spy headquarters.
What the heck just happened?
I guess Jimmy mailed himself to downtown.
With the guys that he saw in the Jet Fusion special, which is a cool callback. They tell him that they have an assignment for him, but accidentally show a picture of him at the beach, which is hilarious.
Okay, which one of you clowns put that in?
I have no idea.
Wasn't me.
Not a clue.
And they talk about how Beautiful Gorgeous, that spy that worked with Professor Calamitous and is his daughter, had just escaped from jail, a 45-year sentence, and got out in 2 weeks for good behavior. Yeah, I don't trust this justice system. Jimmy asks his friends to come along on a secret spy mission, of course, because he can't do it without Carl and Sheen.
We're spiders! We like fresh! Jimmy's dead! It's fresh!
Carl, this is a top secret spy mission, not a musical.
Well, can we make it a spy musical?
No.
And as they're about to spy on Beautiful Gorgeous, they notice that she is with Jet Fusion. She is the one from the beginning of the episode that is planning on attacking him. They see him together and they're like, what's going on? And Jet reveals they're actually getting married. Oh my gosh, see, this is a cool plot twist. Turns out that she went to apologize to him after 2 weeks in jail, which, yeah, people change that quickly. And apparently they fell in love and are ready to get hitched. And I'm not making that word up, like, Jet Fusion uses the word get hitched in this.
You gotta wear a tuxedo when you get hitched.
It's so funny, the Twunkies keep showing up in the other episodes in really small doses to show that they're not gone yet, which is so random because we never address it again. And they spy on Beautiful Gorgeous and Jet, thinking that she's pretty much up to no good. After numerous attempts to save him from moments that don't actually need saving, Jet kind of gets annoyed at these kids for accusing his wife of trying to hurt him all the time. They spy on them in the candy bar with all these fake beards and mustaches, which is kind of hilarious. And everything just seems genuine. Like, it seems like Beautiful Gorgeous is committed to this marriage.
Unless there's a bomb in the cake.
The only thing dangerous in this cake is the 20,000 calories.
Unlikely story.
Despite Jimmy embarrassing himself multiple times trying to call on her. He tries to believe her for a moment, but he never stops being skeptical because Jimmy has this firm belief that people don't change, which comes in handy a lot right now. And we get to see that Beautiful Gorgeous actually hypnotizes Jet, and apparently the next person to ask him where the ring is going to get beaten up, which is funny because Jet Fusion asks Jimmy to be his best man at this wedding, which is surprising to me. I don't know how Jet Fusion has so little people in his life that he needs this 5th grade kid to be his man of honor. I mean, I don't know, it's just weird to me. So later we see Jet talking to the boys and getting ready for the marriage pretty much, and he goes ballistic for a moment, beating up Sheen, because Sheen said the magic words, "I have the ring." Jimmy sneaks off because he notices this awkward behavior and confronts Beautiful Gorgeous. And this is a really cool scene. I love that he comes in through her window, faces her one-on-one where she admits that she is behind all of this. And Jimmy just seems so heroic here, like especially with the hypno beam in his hands. Like, he's such a good fighter. She takes this opportunity by trapping him in a cage and making his memories completely lost. So Jimmy can't remember that Beautiful Gorgeous is evil. She releases him from the cage, and the only thing he remembers is that he's a part of a wedding. Carl and Sheen, though, are able to pick up on the fact Beautiful Gorgeous is evil now, and they're onto her, so they keep following her around. But she doesn't really see them as a threat. They get to the wedding day, and Libby's the one on the piano, and Jimmy Neutron looks so good that Cindy literally has heart eyes.
Hunk muffin. Oh, hi! James?
Hey, Cindy!
Beautiful Gorgeous walks down the aisle with Professor Calamitous, which is so funny, and all seems like it's gonna go well. But unfortunately, Beautiful Gorgeous trapped the only people that know she's up to no good, Carl and Sheen. They're able to work with this monkey who lets them out of the cage, and their goal is to get back to the wedding and tell them that Beautiful Gorgeous is trying to get Jet Fusion to attack Jimmy at the cue of the words, "I have the ring." So many comically distracting things get in the way, like a marching band, the doors are closed, and finally when they get to the wedding, they call out to everybody that he's hypnotized. And everybody believes it pretty quickly because when Sheen says, "I have the ring," Jet Fusion literally tries to attack him.
I knew he'd get cold feet.
This triggers something in Jimmy to remember what's going on and getting everybody to say, "I have the ring."
I have the ring.
I have the ring! I have the ring! I have the ring!
No!
Yes, I have the ring!
Stop it!
I have the ring right here! Everybody! I have the ring! That's not a shame! I have the ring right here!
And therefore, Jet Fusion can't destroy everybody. So we finally learn that this was all just a ploy on Beautiful Gorgeous's behalf, and that she never actually loved Jet, but Jet still loves her, which is actually kind of depressing. I love it that we get this movie star-like guy who's also a secret spy in on this whole bit. Like, it's fun to add Jimmy to the world of this kind of action, and I don't know, it adds a lot of character to it. It kind of reminds me of the Crimson Chin from Timmy Turner, where like he does kind of have this getaway where he can be a superhero, but in this Jimmy, it actually affects his life and what's going on around him, as well as the people, which I kind of like. And did you know that Christian Slater is playing Jet Fusion? Like, that's so nuts to me. They have a really funny ending title sequence.
I think we all learned something very important today.
Once a crook, always a crook?
Clothes make the man?
The Atomic Monkey Special Forces Squad rules?
No, we learned that we can all sing pretty darn well, except she.
Aw, man!
Hit us again, Libby.
1, 2, 3, 4! We all can sing! Yes, we all can sing! We all can sing except she!
What? I can sing?
We all can sing!
I can sing?
Yes, we all can sing!
I do it all the time in the
We all
shower!
can sing except she!
I'm real good at singing!
With Tim Curry as Professor Calamitous, and it just seems like it's just this big drama, but I don't know, all around one of the funnest episodes I've ever had to watch of Jimmy Neutron. I'm sure you guys remember this one. This one is like crazy special. Who's Your Mommy is a really disturbing episode. I saw Aggressively Average did this recently, and he's one of my friends in real life, so I thought it was necessary to actually look into. This is the one that's infamously about Carl being pregnant, and it's so disturbing, to say the least, but I never realized how funny it was. So Jimmy, Carl, and Sheen are headed to another planet looking for something that Sheen left behind. Like when you go back to a classroom that you just finished class in and you're like, oh, I left my books behind. That's kind of what's going on here.
Ha! There you are! From now on, you're going into the bathroom with me. I don't care how embarrassed you are.
They're going through this creepy cage, and a disgusting-looking tarantula captures Carl's fate.
What? Do I have something on my lip?
Don't worry, Carl. Everything's gonna be fine.
Fine? Are you kidding? It's the most horrible thing I've ever seen.
Shane!
Well, look, it's hideous. It's like something out of a freak show.
Shane!
Jimmy and Sheen can't even get it off right away, so they take it back to his lab. They find out that this is just some really weird space monster, and they're able to take it off of his face pretty quickly. But next thing you know, Carl starts having cravings for weird food and really quick mood swings, like yelling at Jimmy and Sheen and then just like casually laughing at them. Like it's so scary. When they go back to the lab, they see that Carl is pregnant in the butt. Like it's like his butt has a child in it, and they keep addressing it like a child, and it's really disturbing because I cannot imagine what this thing is gonna look like. And seeing Carl go through all these symptoms are super funny. Even his family, the Wheezers, are super supportive of him being pregnant, and they're like getting ready for his little baby to come out. It enlarges Carl even more in his butt, and it's really, it's so gross to be animated. I can't believe that like 20 people oversaw this and were like, yeah, we're just doing this episode about this 5th grader that gets pregnant.
It happens all the time.
They have a baby shower for Carl, which is really cute, and I didn't realize Carl was this close to any of the girls, but it is sweet to see them all working together. And this one random ensemble character that is like never in the episodes is just there too. I don't even think the girls know their name.
Should have been implanted with an alien growth long ago.
Okay, game time. First, we're gonna play diaper baby around his tail. Yeah, I love it. We don't know if your baby will even have a tail, but it can't hurt to practice.
In the meantime, it starts to affect the power lines in all of Retroville. Like, he was trying to get out of paying his electricity bill, and then everything goes dark, making him, like, forget that.
Ooh, I didn't know you were so strapped for cash. Will you take a check?
Which is so funny. Which means that Carl is about to give birth, and the alien's real mother is floating into town. And it looks like this giant jellyfish that floats through the sky. And I've never seen a more accurate representation of what I imagined an alien to look like. It's really disturbing. I don't know if you guys know, but I'm pretty scared of space and the unknown, and it really freaks me out to think that a giant extraterrestrial, like, squid could come destroy our power lines. Like, that's getting too realistic for me. Carl inevitably ends up sacrificing his child to the giant alien thing, saying that he knows what she wants and gives birth to this jellyfish thing. It zaps him one last time, which is a really funny bit that doesn't end here.
Carl, that hug contained 10,000 volts of pure energy. Wasn't it painful?
Saying goodbye to your kids is always painful, Jimmy.
And it goes back to its mother, which is really sweet. And in the last scene, we get Carl, Shane, and Jimmy visiting the planet once again to celebrate his birthday. Oh, so Carl's still in his life. It's so funny. And then each of them try to hug Carl's kid, but he keeps zapping everybody. And it's weird to think how many relationships the Jimmy Neutron characters have formed with alien-like species or just things from outer space. Like, Jimmy had Robot, but now it's living out on its own. Carl has this new jellyfish guy, and of course Planet Sheen has Planet Sheen. I mean, I don't even need to get into that one. It's just funny, Jimmy Neutron's universe. It's very interesting. Combined with this episode is Clash of the Cousins, and it's actually a Jimmy Neutron's family reunion episode. It's kind of funny because it's like everybody looks like Hugh, so it's clearly Hugh's side of the family, and I swear they did not change the model at all. Like, look at this grandmother. She just looks like Hugh with a wig on. They're going through all the presents, and they kind of reference the fact that they're waiting for this lady to die to inherit her wealth, and talk about the will a lot, which is a lot that happens in Drake and Josh when they're doing that wedding trip. It's just such a funny trope that everybody's waiting on somebody in their family to die to inherit their money. I don't know, that's just kind of dark to me. We see all the relatives, and they're kind of weird. Like, one sucks on his foot, one is really bossy, and the other one has a baby. Baby Eddie. And this is like a really cute child that doesn't really do much but shake a rattle. Jimmy's family is very resentful of the fact that he has to do all these inventions and kind of see him as this little kid who ruins everything, especially when Jimmy knocks over Aunt Amanda and it turns out that somebody was trying to get a bomb and hurt them. Jimmy's parents get really mad at him for involving themselves somehow, and they punish him by going into the house. Carl and Sheen, for some reason, are here with him and his family, which I don't really get, but they're not in the way, so what does it matter? Jimmy realizes that one of his cousins has to be sabotaging the rest of his family. Carl and Sheen investigate, trying to get to know them, and they're such neurotic people. Like, they don't even know how to talk to these kids. They should be in insane asylums.
I got my hand caught in the pickle jar.
Ping pong it is!
It's funny to think of each of them as a genius master manipulator before one of them could pick up on the fact that it is somebody else.
Don't sneak up on me! I have senseless panic attack syndrome! I'm allergic to wheat. Oh, really? Go away!
Like, Jimmy's family is just so confusing. None of them essentially look like they could be the one to cause the destruction, until we realize they didn't think about the baby Eddie. So Eddie starts talking like this big mobster with a rattle, and he's like this evil genius.
Man, did I have you barking up the wrong tree? You know, maybe you ain't as bright as everybody thinks.
Oh, how could I be so naive?
It's so weird to think that this came after the Jimmy Neutron season finale, like the one where the League of Villains is teaming up against them. Yeah, baby Eddie is a vital part of that, and it happens before this episode technically, so it doesn't even make any sense why he's a part of the revenge group. But we know that episode numbers and production codes are different, so we're just gonna move on. Jimmy tries to warn his family, but he can't in time until the baby starts attacking Jimmy. Then the family realizes that he's up to no good, and Jimmy was telling the truth this whole time, so they can't hate him as much as they have been.
That baby's a bad seed. It's Jimmy who's the good nephew.
Baby Eddie is so funny because he reminds me of Boss Baby a lot, but he's like a lot more aggressive, and I don't know, it's just such a funny bit to have him be such a stern guy, but in a baby's body. And it's interesting that he acknowledges that he is Jimmy's cousin. Like, of course he's related to a genius, of course it's normal to have a genius, and I feel like if the show went on for a 4th season and continued this run, we might see more of Baby Eddie, and I would love to see how he reacts to the family. Maybe Jimmy and him facing off a lot more. He seems like a really worthy opponent in the same way that Rich Kid was. Like, it's a version of Jimmy that doesn't have any morals. Of course he would go up against him. And I just want to see that, okay? Give me a break. Next episode is called Crouching Jimmy, Hidden Sheen. And this one's kind of interesting because it's kind of like a karate episode, as if SpongeBob hasn't done that before. So we start by seeing a really awesome action sequence with a really cool villain, one that's kind of unique to this show. I wish this guy was in the season finale. He's super impressive, is even able to fly, and essentially this whole bit is to emphasize that there is a chosen one made to take on this guy. That happens to be, you guessed it, the guy who puts his foot behind his head, Sheen. Then it starts to make a little bit of sense. These are definitely the same monks, or I'm not sure what to call this race. I think the shrouded people, the cult. I don't want to be offensive. The shrouded few. Meanwhile, there is a school dance going on, and Libby is going to be performing with Nick.
What?
Sheen!
What do you mean you and Nick? You're my girlfriend!
Sheen, chill out.
Ooh. Sheen says that she's his girlfriend, so she can't do that, which is so funny because they aren't apparently dating. I could have sworn they were, but whatever.
Fickletooth, thy name is Libby!
Sheen's immediately jealous, but Jimmy's like, you don't want to be doing that anyway, discouraging Cindy from asking him to do it. Aw, these guys just keep missing each other, Jimmy and Cindy. It's not enough that they all have all the same interests, but they have to reject each other all the time. It must be exhausting. Sheen lies that he's a good dancer and begs Jimmy to help him with that. So it works. Jimmy makes a machine that allows Sheen to dance really well. It's a really funny sequence. Even Carl gets swayed away by him.
Whoa, Sheen, whoa, oh boy.
Check me out. I'm a hip-hop tangler fool.
Sheen, be careful!
And just as we're about to see him enter the dance competition, a ninja approaches from a helicopter and attempts to kidnap Sheen. They don't really know what's going on, so they continue to get ready for the school dance. Jimmy is concerned for Sheen's safety, so he goes to try to protect him. But Miss Fowl is like, you're not in the competition, so you can't be here. So Jimmy takes the opportunity to be Cindy's dance partner.
There you are, Neutron. Look, I know it's late notice, and I know you think the dance show is stupid.
You need a dance partner for tonight? I'm your man.
You are?
Fulfilling her wish, and then also getting to spy on Sheen. Obviously, it doesn't go as planned because Jimmy's not really there to dance, and Cindy gets really mad. Another miss on these two. Bulby has this really funny routine with his cousin, and they look exactly alike.
Slap, slap, slap. Clap, clap, clap. Slap, slap, slap. Clap, clap, clap.
I bet they took the character model and literally just duplicated it. So as they dance, ninjas actually show up to take Sheen once again. Jimmy activates this neutralizer that makes them pass out on stage. That's when they get the message that Libby was taken by this martial arts guy. And if they ever want to see her, my favorite villain so far, why couldn't he be in the League of Villains episode?
Oh, now I must speak to myself again. When I am chosen one, I will command respect, not like now, which is the opposite situation where I command none. Okay, Don't try to escape!
Jimmy and friends try to avoid the fight and just rescue Libby, but they get attacked by ninjas once again. So Sheen has no choice but to actually prepare to fight this guy. Since he doesn't have any skills, he goes to seek out this trainer. He has a funny doorbell. His name is Master Hong, and he teaches Sheen to be a good fighter, followed by another montage with the same music from earlier, but now Sheen is learning how to train in martial arts. Jimmy attempts to help him with his invention, but it doesn't work. Sheen ends up getting severely beaten up, and there's almost no chance until Jimmy realizes he can insert the dance chip. So he dances his way through defeating this guy. With the help of the pendant that Libby found in this guy's room, they finally take down the ninja boy. Sheen becomes the ultimate fighter and exactly what everybody expected him to be, which is so crazy to me. Cindy comes in to save the day too, and we end with Sheen putting his leg behind his head one last time. Interesting episode. I like the homage to old Chinese karate movies, and having Sheen be at the forefront of it is just hilarious. I did not remember this episode going into it, but I'm happy about it because everything was a surprise and really fun to rewatch. Next episode surprised me with how much I liked it and having not remembered it. It's season 3, episode 9, I guess. My Big Fat Spy Wedding. So we start with a hidden figure, like a ninja that we don't really know who it is, but it looks like the outline of Beautiful Gorgeous. It goes to sneak in on Jet Fusion, who is asleep, and we kind of cut away from that. Jimmy has his robo-walker out, and he's trying to teach it how to give him dance moves, which is kind of random. It reminds me a lot of the Pants Machine from season 1. So Jimmy's interrupted and abruptly taken to the secret spy headquarters.
What the heck just happened?
I guess Jimmy mailed himself to downtown.
With the guys that he saw in the Jet Fusion special, which is a cool callback. They tell him that they have an assignment for him, but accidentally show a picture of him at the beach, which is hilarious.
Okay, which one of you clowns put that in?
I have no idea.
Not a clue.
And they talk about how Beautiful Gorgeous, that spy that worked with Professor Calamitous and is his daughter, had just escaped from jail, a 45-year sentence, and got out in 2 weeks for good behavior. Yeah, I don't trust this justice system. Jimmy asks his friends to come along on a secret spy mission, of course, because he can't do it without Carl and Sheen.
We're spiders, we like fresh. Jimmy's dead, each prize.
Carl, this is a top secret spy mission, not a musical.
Well, can we make it a spy musical?
No.
And as they're about to spy on Beautiful Gorgeous, they notice that she is with Jet Fusion. She is the one from the beginning of the episode that is planning on attacking him. They see him together and they're like, what's going on? And Jet reveals they're actually getting married. Oh my gosh, see, this is a cool plot twist. Turns out that she went to apologize to him after 2 weeks in jail, which, yeah, people change that quickly. And apparently they fell in love and are ready to get hitched. And I'm not making that word up, like, Jet Fusion uses the word get hitched in this.
You gotta wear a tuxedo when you get hitched.
It's so funny, the Twunkies keep showing up in the other episodes in really small doses to show that they're not gone yet, which is so random because we never address it again. And they spy on Beautiful Gorgeous and Jet, thinking that she's pretty much up to no good. After numerous attempts to save him from moments that don't actually need saving, Jet kind of gets annoyed at these kids for accusing his wife of trying to hurt him all the time. They spy on them in the candy bar with all these fake beards and mustaches, which is kind of hilarious. And everything just seems genuine, like it seems like Beautiful Gorgeous is committed to this marriage.
Unless there's a bomb in the cake!
The only thing dangerous in this cake is the 20,000 calories.
A likely story.
Despite Jimmy embarrassing himself multiple times trying to call on her. He tries to believe her for a moment, but he never stops being skeptical because Jimmy has this firm belief that people don't change, which comes in handy a lot right now. And we get to see that Beautiful Gorgeous actually hypnotizes Jet, and apparently the next person to ask him where the ring is going to get beaten up. Which is funny because Jet Fusion asks Jimmy to be his best man at this wedding, which is surprising to me. I don't know how Jet Fusion has so little people in his life that he needs this 5th grade kid to be his man of honor. I mean, I don't know, it's just weird to me. So later we see Jet talking to the boys and getting ready for the marriage, pretty much. And he goes ballistic for a moment, beating up Sheen. Because Sheen said the magic words, "I have the ring." Jimmy sneaks off because he notices this awkward behavior and confronts Beautiful Gorgeous. And this is a really cool scene. I love that he comes in through her window, faces her one-on-one where she admits that she is behind all of this. And Jimmy just seems so heroic here, like especially with the hypno beam in his hands. Like, he's such a good fighter. She takes this opportunity by trapping him in a cage and making his memories completely lost. So Jimmy can't remember that Beautiful Gorgeous is evil. She releases him from the cage, and the only thing he remembers is that he's a part of a wedding. Carl and Sheen, though, are able to pick up on the fact Beautiful Gorgeous is evil now, and they're onto her, so they keep following her around. But she doesn't really see them as a threat. They get to the wedding day, and Libby's the one on the piano, and Jimmy Neutron looks so good that Cindy literally has heart eyes.
Hunk muffin. Oh, hi! James?
Hey, Cindy!
Beautiful Gorgeous walks down the aisle with Professor Calamitous, which is so funny, and all seems like it's gonna go well. But unfortunately, Beautiful Gorgeous trapped the only people that know she's up to no good, Carl and Sheen. They're able to work with this monkey who lets them out of the cage, and their goal is to get back to the wedding and tell them that Beautiful Gorgeous is trying to get Jet Fusion to attack Jimmy at the cue of the words, "I have the ring." So many comically distracting things get in the way, like a marching band, the doors are closed, and finally when they get to the wedding, they call out to everybody that he's hypnotized. And everybody believes it pretty quickly because when Sheen says, "I have the ring," Jet Fusion literally tries to attack him.
I knew he'd get cold feet.
This triggers something in Jimmy to remember what's going on and getting everybody to say, "I have the ring."
I have the ring.
I have the ring! I have the ring! I have the ring!
No!
Yes, I have the ring!
Stop it!
I have the ring right here! Everybody! I have the ring! That's not a shame! I have the ring right here!
Therefore, Jet Fusion can't destroy everybody. So we finally learn that this was all just a ploy on Beautiful Gorgeous's behalf, and that she never actually loved Jet, but Jet still loves her, which is actually kind of depressing. I love it that we get this movie star-like guy who's also a secret spy in on this whole bit. Like, it's fun to add Jimmy to the world of this kind of action, and I don't know, it adds a lot of character to it. It kind of reminds me of the Crimson Chin from Timmy Turner, where like he does kind of have this getaway where he can be a superhero, but in this Jimmy, it actually affects his life and what's going on around him, as well as the people, which I kind of like. And did you know that Christian Slater is playing Jet Fusion? Like, that's so nuts to me. They have a really funny ending title sequence.
I think we all learned something very important today.
Once a crook, always a crook?
Clothes make the man?
The Atomic Monkey Special Forces Squad rules?
No, we learned that we can all sing pretty darn well, except she.
Aw, man!
Hit us again, Libby.
1, 2, 3, 4! We all can sing! Yes, we all can sing! We all can sing except she!
What? I can sing?
We all can sing!
I can sing!
Yes, we all can sing!
I do it all the time in the shower!
We all can sing except she!
I'm not gonna sing it!
With Tim Curry as Professor Calamitous, and it just seems like it's just this big drama, but I don't know, all around one of the funnest episodes I've ever had to watch of Jimmy Neutron. I'm sure you guys remember this one. This one is like crazy special. Now we're gonna take a break of episodes to show you my fanfic music video of Jimmy and Cindy.
I will leave myself behind.
Yes, it has to be love.
So I have to let go.
Forget all that you know.
I just cannot be.
To your heart you must
I
breathe.
just scoop so low.
All is well with war and love, so don't let go.
The next episode of Jimmy Neutron is called The Incredible Shrinking Town, and I cannot believe that Jimmy Neutron didn't do a shrinking episode yet. It's crazy some of the episode ideas that are used in this season because they seem really basic in retrospect, but Jimmy Neutron does have a good twist on almost all of them. Butch and Nick are picking for their basketball team, and for some reason Wayside goes to their school. Like, can you see those guys there? Jimmy gets picked last because he's apparently the smallest and shortest.
Hey, after the game, you wanna come over and watch Wizard of Oz? I love those little munchkins. What? What'd I say?
And we get one of those episode tropes where the character is just so embarrassingly small that they want to change it however they can. And I relate to this plot a lot. I am 5'4" and a 28-year-old boy. But you know what? We feel bad for Jimmy because he's in 5th grade and he's not old enough to know that it's normal yet. Cindy teases him about it, which is fair.
Let them laugh at you, Neutron. Stand up and face him like a man.
He is standing.
But Jimmy is just fed up, so he uses a shrink ray in attempt to make the roller coaster attendant feel bad about himself, but somebody knocks the shrink ray out of his hand into Retroland's strength thing. Oh my god, the woman has a copy of Little Women, which is so funny. This ends up shrinking the entire town. Every human, but a few things, like Goddard, who's not human. And now they're basically stuck as these pipsqueaks. Everybody liked Jimmy. Hugh obviously has a good time with it, which is so funny, because he's just always making do and enjoying himself.
I know, these are dark times, sugar booger. But look on the bright side, we finally got a jumbo-sized TV!
And his mom is like, you better get this fixed. Next thing you know, getting into the lab becomes even a chore because of how small they are, but Jimmy manages to do it. He basically needs time to recreate an entire new anti-shrinking device. And unfortunately, all of Retroville is going to have to wait until he's finished. You're telling me there is nobody else that could help? Seeing all the characters try to go about their daily lives as super small micro people is super funny. We get introduced to the Martians in this episode, who already plan on invading Earth, which is convenient timing because everybody is super small and pretty much defenseless. I was even worried about them in this episode because obviously when the Martians come, it's like there's no way they could beat them. They end up playing with them like ants and making them do things they don't want to do, even capturing Jimmy and his friends. Hugh has fun on the hamster wheel, and that's all that needs to be said about that. The whole premise is that they're becoming pets for these aliens, which has always been a fear of mine. Like, imagine, like, one day we are taken over by aliens, but not only that, used as pets. Like, that would freak me out.
My name is Carl, and I want to play with you.
That's a 10 on the creepy scale.
Jimmy uses his brains to make up for his smallness, and he, Carl, and Sheen try to get into the aliens' heads, causing them to fight each other. Oof. Good job, Jimmy. Using his given talents. In the end, Jimmy is rewarded for bringing everybody back to normal, but Cindy points out that it was his fault in the first place and they revoke his award.
May I just remind everybody this was all Neutron's fault?
Oh, the loud girl has a point. Chainsaw! For reminding us that this was all Jimmy's fault, we present half of the Retroville Trophy of Honor to Cindy Vortex.
I guess that's a happy ending. A really clever take on this trope. I know they did it in Ed, Edd n Eddy and even Timmy Turner. Combining some of the most basic plots is the trick to creating something that is unique anyway. And Jimmy Neutron does a great job at it. And finally, we get to see these Martians be a part of this. It gets me really hyped for the League of Villains finale. So One of Us is one of those stereotypical mind control episodes, but I wasn't expecting to like it so much. We dealt with mind control in the beginning season of Jimmy Neutron, where it became his birthday over and over and over again, which was a really fun plot and definitely a good example of Jimmy's hijinks. But in this one, we're thrown into the action with the entire town chasing Jimmy and Cindy, and we have no idea what's going on. They do that funny trope where Jimmy's like, that was days ago, and this is today.
Here we were, running for our lives from our best friends and family. How did this happen? It all began on a normal day at school.
So we go to the schoolyard and Sheen is acting super weird. Nobody really picks up on it except for Carl, and Jimmy is like denying it. He basically says he's watching this new positive show that makes him so happy and everybody should be watching it. Even later, while Jimmy's working on his invention, Sheen starts calling him and even shows up at the lab to make sure he watches this show. And this feels like a commentary on the real world. Like, you ever have friends be like, you have to watch this show? I know we had a phase with that with Avatar: The Last Airbender over COVID, where everybody's like, you have to watch this, you have to. But it's a funny idea. Next thing you know, one by one, people start all saying you need to watch this show.
Morning, Jimmy. I'm very happy today. Are you happy?
Hello, Hello, Jimmy. I'm happy to see you. Did you watch the Happy Show last night?
But Jimmy's obviously got the ego, so he's like, no, I'm not watching it. I'm gonna be contrarian, which is me in this scenario. Jimmy finally gives in when Betty Quinlan says to watch the show with her. Surprise, surprise. Jimmy gets a glimpse of the show for himself, and it's just creepy and boring, so he turns it off. When he goes to school the next day and tells him he couldn't watch it, everybody is so surprised. Hey, we get to see Jimmy's bathroom again. I feel like we haven't seen this since the movie. He's getting ready to see Betty Quinlan and give the show another try, which it looks like he's late because he's showing up and the TV program's on, which is good for Jimmy, but also rude. And this is when the action gets real. All the people in Retroville suddenly are mind controlled by the show, trying to get Jimmy to watch it, and there's just something up. Luckily, Cindy just gets back from karate camp and isn't mind controlled, so she's able to help Jimmy.
No, but I'm filthy, and I lost at the karate competition to a 6-year-old beige belt on crutches!
That's great!
What?
No, you don't understand! Mindless zombies, grandma taters, TV, mass hypnosis!
Neutron, that big brain of yours has finally blown a gasket.
It's nice and sweet to see these two alone once again since the Stranded episode. They clearly are a good team, and I don't know why they keep denying it. They work together to try to take down the head of this program, Grandma Taters. Grandma Taters is later going to be a villain in the Jimmy Neutron finale, so it's cool to see her in this. It's weird to me that she's in only a 10-minute episode, as opposed to the karate guy from the last episode that I loved. He's not even in the finale, and he got a full episode. This one really could have been a full episode, though. It's a really clever idea. Having everybody stuck watching the TV. Grandma Taters has everybody chain Jimmy to a chair to get him to watch the show. Luckily, Cindy seems like she's under mind control, but is able to get Jimmy out of it. And they trap Grandma Taters. And this is my favorite part. They have Jimmy dress up as the old woman and essentially undo all the hypnotizing.
Hello, dearies. This is Grandma Taters. I was wrong to tell you to be happy all the time. Being different is what keeps us all from being a pack of mindless meat puppets.
Be angry if you're feeling mad. And if you're sad, be weepy. But don't be happy all the time. 'Cause frankly, it's creepy.
And I don't know why, there's something about Jimmy getting so into this character that he is playing such a good grandmother that makes me laugh. In the end, they tell Grandma Taters that she can't be doing this, and I don't know why they just let her go. And in the most nightmare-fueled scene next, we have a bunch of Grandma Taters showing up to apparently do their job. So it just seems like this happens all the time, and they're gonna continue doing it. Weird resolve for me.
We'll be back.
The next episode we have is the second half of this segment. It's called Vanishing Act. It's weird with these 10-minute episodes because there's so much plot in Jimmy Neutron that they essentially have to cut out the first act and throw us into the action, which could sometimes be really good for this show, but other times be really annoying for somebody who really likes the half-hour episodes. This one, however, uses the time super well. So the whole premise is that Jimmy is going to be a magician for the talent show at school. All of this to impress Betty Quinlan. I guess just both these episodes are to impress Betty Quinlan. It's apparent because she likes magic and nobody else does.
I've been doing it for years. I've been doing it for years. Man's best friend.
The whole thing is he's going to get one of his friends to disappear. So when it comes time for the talent show, Carl and Sheen introduce him, and he uses an old famous magician's machine that apparently allows things to disappear. When Jimmy gets to the stage, everything goes as planned, and Cindy is angry and jealous because obviously he's schmoozing for Betty Quinlan. And I would be annoyed too, like, we just spent an entire episode on an island together. Are you seriously gonna ditch me for this girl? But Jimmy does, and he puts her in the box. The box goes haywire, and it ends up being this giant void into space. So Jimmy's friends all get sucked into it, with him really worried about it. So he uses Libby as a distraction during the talent show to go into the box.
Thanks. Now I will disappear, and Miss Libby Fullfax will keep you all entertained until I return. Hopefully.
Ready to get some funk in your face?
It's this floating empty world, which is terrifying to look at. But it reminds me of this episode of Shaolin Showdown where they have the yin yang world, and it's essentially a floating mystery where everything just goes haywire and there's no rules, I guess. I like that the through line of this episode, though, is Jimmy trying to impress Betty Quinlan and being so distracted by his love for her that he makes all these mistakes. Like, it's very in the character of Jimmy Neutron. He finds all his friends as floating heads, and it's really disorienting. After a series of jumping through paintings, things, ending up in deserts, and finding their body parts. Their goal is to get out of whatever this world is. And I am terrified. Like, I don't know what's next.
Keep going, Libby! I'm sure Jimmy will be back any second!
They even enter a giant simulation where Jimmy is like, wow, I could live here forever. And it's like, Jimmy, do you have a heart at all? Betty Quinlan even acknowledges that Cindy has a crush on Jimmy and says that she will back off.
Look, I know all about the whole you and Neutron thing.
Thing? What thing? There is no thing. We don't have a thing.
Yeah, right. Just relax and keep out of my face. He's all yours.
Which really makes her happy. So there's a little bit of character development in this, despite being a 10-minute episode. They're running away from this mysterious floating hand the whole time, which makes it even more scary, until they eventually find themselves in a really vague room. And who better to be in that room than the magician that made the attraction that Jimmy used. Jimmy learns quickly, and I don't know how he figures stuff out like this, that there is a sandwich that keeps appearing every day in this one really creepy hallway. It leads them to a secret room full of a bunch of voids. I would avoid this, am I right? Nah, just kidding. And each of them are portals to their own little worlds. They keep looking until they find the right one, and they are back in the talent show. I don't know how Libby distracted this long.
Oh, do you know anything about knife throwing, Libby?
No, but how hard can it be?
But Jimmy takes credit for one of the best magic tricks of all time. And we don't really see what happens with Betty Quinlan. All around, a good use of the 10-minute episode. But I still wish each of these had their own standalone time. But you know, Jimmy Season 3 is just full of surprises, and we're gonna just keep trucking through. This is by far one of the scariest episodes of TV I think I ever saw. Not because of like jump scares or anything physically scary, but almost the thriller of it all. The episode's called The Trouble with Clones, finally giving a half-hour episode to evil Jimmy, because his last appearance in the show was only 10 minutes, and it wasn't really about him, so I like that we finally get a plot that's relevant to him. We start off with Cindy and Libby reenacting some old historical fight, but Jimmy's just getting mad at it, which is, Jimmy, get something else to do. Everybody in the class kind of make fun of him because, and this is their words, not mine, he's slow.
Slow people make the lamest excuses.
Making him insecure that he's not making enough inventions in his life. It kind of inspires him to try to buy more time. He flies off into space, approaching evil Jimmy with the intention that he will make him good and allow him to fill in for him during his school day. I feel like if I did that with my day job, I would get way too comfortable doing nothing with my life. Like, imagine we all just had clones that did stuff for us. That's a dystopian world. And the cinematic shots of them in space is just kind of really good. Jimmy's able to capture his clone and take him to his lab. So Jimmy uses this giant foggy box that he used in the hamster episode when he turned into a hamster to take away the evil from his clone. But Jimmy doesn't realize that his clone literally breaks off all the fluid that would have made him good, and he just pretends to be good, which isn't that all of us in a way? I don't know how he shaved his eyebrows though in that short amount of time. Like, that's kind of weird. So Jimmy stows away in his lab to work on all the inventions he's been missing out on. Meanwhile, his evil clone is ruining his reputation with everybody in town.
And dig in, Jim Jam. Or how about this? You think you're an aphid?
Jimmy, what on earth are you?
You think you're a lawn sprinkler?
Whip, 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 whip.
This is gonna be fun.
And it leads to one of the funniest musical acts where he makes Carl and Sheen become backup dancers. Listen to this.
Hey, Jimmy, can you make school end at 10:45 every day?
Yeah, and can every second Thursday be Burrito Thursday?
Ooh, burritos.
Good idea. First, you two think you're a couple of sassy female backup singers.
Ain't no loving my man, shoo up, shoo up. Ooh, ain't no loving my man, shoo up, shoo up.
Good one, Neutron.
Yeah, that's classic.
Gentlemen, you are now United States Marines. Are you ready to receive orders?
Sir, yes, sir.
Then drop and give me 400,000.
Sir, yes, sir. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
You know, a fella could get used to this.
Jimmy picks up on how negative he's acting and realizes that his clone is still evil. Jimmy runs back to his lab to find his clone stealing like a dark matter chip and racing off, and Jimmy can't catch up with him. Next thing you know, and this is where it gets crazy, he's inventing an entire clone of Earth, a negative alternative to where he lives currently. So that means everything on the regular Earth is starting to dissipate, like Hugh Neutron already. Everything but him. So Jimmy uses this opportunity to fly to the other Earth, and this is where it gets really cool. So everything in this new world is really dark and shadowy, and Jimmy actually has to pretend to blend in like he's evil himself, which doesn't really come naturally to him. He goes to the candy bar and has to pretend that he's a jerk to Sam, and he's really bad at it. I don't know how everybody's not picking up on this right away.
Mmm, delicious.
Delicious? I'll have you know it stinks. Yeah. Hey, are you sure you're evil?
Well, you want evil, fat boy? I'll give you evil. Take this, and that, and more of this, and that's for your mother, and this is for you. Any more questions?
No, you're evil, all right.
He runs into Carl and Sheen at school, and they're also evil. Like, seeing this dark side of everybody is really scary. Carl's like a bully, Miss Fowl is rude, and it's kind of demonic. Eventually, the class finds out that Jimmy is not an evil clone, and they chase him off. He runs home in hopes that his parents could help him out, but they already know what's going on, and they trap him. The Jimmy clone comes back, and he is gloating because he pretty much has won. He takes Jimmy back into his lab, and this is kind of funny because it's like, this is exactly how the episode started, with Jimmy taking the clone into his lab, and now the clone is taking Jimmy to his lab. Like, it's such a funny switch of character. When Jimmy finally disarms the bomb from his clone lab, the clone has one more thing up his sleeve. He uses a dark matter chip to blow up the current planet they're on. The only issue is that Jimmy's still there. So Jimmy literally has to jump in his rocket and fly off. He goes back to planet Earth and everything is fine. He saved the day, except for Carl and Sheen, who decided to go about their lives as these backup dancers.
My man, shoo up, ooh, ain't no never my man.
And that's kind of how it ends. It's pretty fun. So now we have the Evil Beneath. This is another one of those 20-minute episodes that's split into two 10-minute parts, but this one's kind of fun. It's another one of the Lost at Sea big mystery episodes, where apparently the Bermuda Triangle is involved. They call it the Bahamas Quadrangle, something that's a parody of the Bermuda Triangle. I don't know who they worry about copyright issues from, but whatever. I remember watching this one a lot when I was growing up, and just rumors about the Bermuda Triangle were so interesting. Like the idea that things just mysteriously disappear there. Of course, Jimmy takes this as a challenge and is like, well, let's figure out what it is. So his goal is to just prove that the Bermuda Triangle doesn't exist, while Carl and Sheen are terrified and want to go on this adventure. When they actually head out to the ocean, which is fun because it's not with Cindy and Libby this time, I like that it's a trio adventure, all of his systems go down pretty quickly. Jimmy's already nervous, and he brings out his gum that allows him to breathe underwater, which is a good idea. So the three swim through the bottom, and we don't see SpongeBob's house like we did in the last episode. They end up in this really isolated facility underground and meet a mad scientist named Dr. Moist. I don't like his name. And he says he's a good tap dancer too, which is kind of funny.
Yeah!
He has these giant algae-covered green bodyguards, I guess? And Jimmy is at first impressed until they realize that they are literally trying to kidnap them. They have Carl, Sheen, and Jimmy for dinner, and Jimmy's not smart enough to realize that the stuff they're eating is literally gonna turn them into the green monsters. So he captures all three of them, puts them in a cage as they start turning green to become another one of Dr. Moist's slaves. And this is another guy that I think could be in the League of Villains episode, but you know, that never really comes out, so whatever. They escape long enough to trick the algae men and take the antidote that stops them from becoming algae men themselves. As they swim out of the lab, it explodes, pretty much, causing the three to be proud of their successful adventure.
The mystery of the Bahama Quadrangle is solved.
I'm just glad it wasn't evil porpoises. That would have been terrifying.
The next episode's really funny because to me, it is exactly taking the plot of Drake and Josh and copy and pasting it. It's called Carl Wheezer Boy Genius. And well, first off, the title is amazing looking. Like, look at that. The llama in orange. Like, this is so funny already. Carl admits to the boys that he's been seeing somebody. And of course, they are reasonably shocked. I'm like, who are you seeing? Apparently, she's a pen pal from another country. Sound familiar on Drake and Josh? Josh was talking to a pen pal and she came over and he pretended to be a whole different person. It's kind of like what's about to happen. So basically, Carl is telling Jimmy that he promised her that he was a genius and he needs his help to put on this facade facade when she gets there. Her name's Elkie. It's so funny because Carl and Sheen are just so comfortable lying, and Jimmy's the only one that's like, I don't know, that kind of seems inappropriate. As they're trying to get Carl ready for Elkie's arrival, they try to give him like a scientist outfit, and we get a funny little montage. And he essentially just looks like Jimmy. I don't know why his swoopy hair indicates you're smart, but whatever. They meet Elkie, and she's just as pretty as she said, and now this is where it gets really funny. Carl excuses Jimmy as his worker monkey, which is kind of offensive, and shames him in front of her to look better. It's almost like he ends up abusing Jimmy more than even looking like a genius. Like, he's just trying to come across as cool. And I've never seen this antagonistic side of Carl. Like, it's kind of heartless. I don't think I like him as a character if this is what he's like all the time.
Après-vous. Oh, that's French for get in.
But you gotta admit, a lot of these jokes are super funny, especially with how ridiculous Carl's accusations are to Jimmy. Elkie asks Carl to bring back her favorite poet, and they bring back Attila the Hun, and he destroys Jimmy's lab. Jimmy has had enough, and he's like, Carl, stop, I'm done playing along with this. But Carl fights back and kicks Jimmy out of his own lab. Carl, yeah, he takes this way too far. He even jumps in Jimmy's rocket and heads off to the sky. It's like this desperate attempt to prove to himself that he's a genius, which is crazy how delusional he gets. He ends up crashing the rocket right back into Jimmy's house and then blowing up on him about it. Oh my gosh, Carl. I would be so fed up. Elkie admits to Carl that she is actually a loser and a nerd, and that she shouldn't be with a genius like Carl, and Carl admits that he too is a nerd, and they're both a part of the llama club, which didn't realize that was a thing, and end up dating, and therefore we never see her again. Overall, a really funny episode. I love it when they switch the character roles and seeing how they react to it. Like, Carl is just such a jerk in this episode, and I'm so glad it doesn't get this far again. But I definitely empathize with Jimmy more here.
Oh, Carl, it is the truth. You were lying. You are a nerd.
A heavy-set glasses-wearing nerd with a blankie and many fears and numerous medical problems.
Come, let me kiss you so many times, nerd boy.
What the?
Hey, I'm a nerd.
I'm a nerd too.
I'm a huge nerd.
This next episode is one that I actually forgot about for quite some time. Who Framed Jimmy? They really took Jimmy and put him in the wackiest scenarios this season, like having him arrested, it's crazy. So we start off by seeing that there was a bank robbery, and on the scene of the crime, they find Jimmy's hypno beam. Carl and Sheen immediately think he did it, which some friends of you guys are, and he's basically like, there's no way I did this.
Way to go, Jimmy, your first federal crime.
Why, Jimmy, why? I would have lent you $1 million.
I didn't do it. This is ridiculous. Let's get out of here quick so I can figure out what's going on.
Carl, you don't have $1 million.
Well, it's the thought that counts.
But the cops are not having it. Jimmy quickly tries to find evidence that proves his innocence by looking at his camera in his lab, and finds that a mysterious figure actually did take the hypno beam. So before he could tell the police, they end up surrounding his lab. And by surrounding, I mean just two of them.
Jimmy Neutron, this is the police. Come out with your hands over your head.
It's physically impossible.
These cops are super funny in this show. Why is it that they always have cops play super dim-witted characters? Maybe because a lot of the plot lines involve illegal things happening. They can only really justify these things happening by having like a weak government, because like how would they be able to get away with as much as they did? They arrest Jimmy on the spot at his lab, and Carl and Sheen don't do much to help.
Jimmy, I know you're innocent. Don't forget to brush your teeth. Hugh, our little boy is going to jail.
Seems like only yesterday he was stealing our heart.
They interview Sheen, and he says he's an odd kid, which is super funny. Jimmy literally has to go in a prison outfit and is locked behind bars. So this is for real. He doesn't even get a trial. He's just thrown into jail. He asks Sheen if he remembers a book about chainsaws, hacksaws, and drills, but Sheen doesn't get that this is like a secret metaphor to try to get out of jail, and just brings him the book itself. Right before they're about to get away and break Jimmy out, they're caught by the guard. So Jimmy is still trying to prove his innocence.
Neutron, he stole the money. Now he's working on the chain gang. He'll rot in prison.
Shane!
As the three are cleaning up litter off the ground, and I don't know why there's no other prisoners, like why is it just these three kids? They try to trick the officer into looking away so they can escape. They run into some random banjo boy in the forest.
Have a computer with high-speed cable or satellite connectivity?
Danged if I don't. It's right over yonder there in my internet cafe.
And they inevitably get chased by a bear, which is the least of my concerns for this episode. As the parole officer tries to find them, they hide in the pool. Cindy sees on TV that these guys are wanted for $10,000 and debates turning them in. It's crazy how far Jimmy and Cindy are willing to go to throw each other under the bus when they're not together. Like, what the heck, guys? Because at this point, the Stranded episode happened, and it's like you have a little bit of feelings toward Jimmy at least. Like, don't throw him in prison. And it's funny because Sheen keeps saying that he's gonna attempt to turn them in, which is kind of random. They learn that it actually was the parole officer who was the most suspicious and definitely did it. The cops figure out through the money that blinks and they catch the parole officer. The end. So the next episode we have is Flippy. This is another one of the callback episodes to an older thing that happened. I don't know if you remember, but Hugh had a talking dummy, and this is where it gets really crazy. We start the episode with Carl, Sheen, and Jimmy running in slow motion, which is, oh my god, these inventions have really kicked it up a notch. Like, I would want to do all this stuff. Not to mention the underwater gum they had in the Evil Beneath episode. Like, why are these so desirable? Hugh is going to be talking at Jimmy's school for career day, and Jimmy is pretty embarrassed because he knows that his father's going to bring a dummy and tell jokes, which is kind of wild to me because I feel like the context should be that he works at a car place like we've learned in the past about Hugh, but it doesn't seem like that's what we're going for. Jimmy tries to complain to his mom and she's like, it's my fault. You're just gonna have to let your dad do his jokes. Thanks for the help, mom. So I guess Jimmy's more concerned at the fact that Hugh's jokes aren't funny, so he decides to take Flippy and put in a chip that would make him a lot funnier. This is very Night of the Living Dummy. It's about a dummy that comes to life and literally terrorizes the kids, and that is exactly what I feel when watching this. So the chip works, and the next day at Jimmy's school, Hugh is loved for his comedy. Then Hugh gets more into it as a result, and Flippy slowly starts coming to life.
Ah, can't you just smell the learning? Wait a minute, that's Butch! Dude, do you ever shower?
So what else do you like about Lindbergh School, Flippy?
Well, you can't beat the cafeteria. I tell you, the food there is fit for a king. Here, king! Here, king!
King's a dog's name.
It's almost exactly like Night of the Living Dummy. And you know what? Honestly, this is even scarier at some points, because the dummy starts to take on Hugh's personality more than Hugh, and slowly his dad gets drained of his existence, I guess, with the dummy actually commanding Hugh more than vice versa. Jimmy realizes that adding that joke chip actually is bringing Flippy to life and taking over his dad.
I said he's fine, Jimbo. Now sit down and eat your breakfast.
Jimbo? The chip? All right, Flippy, I know what you're up to.
Hey, bad move, kid. Your pops and I share a brain, and I could do some serious damage.
Oh, I wish this was a normal half-hour episode because I find it really interesting, and I feel like if we had more build-up and payoff, it would be such a crazy, scary episode. Sheen points out that Jimmy just wants him to act different and he will never be satisfied, which is really funny.
First your dad's not funny enough. Now he's acting like a zombie. Will you never be satisfied?
Flippy takes things way too far and actually starts selling all of Jimmy's stuff, which, how in the world did you guys get that out? Jimmy ends up confronting Flippy, knocking him off of Hugh, and Flippy tries to get sympathy from him, but clearly it doesn't work. He has this really dark monologue about wanting to live, which is so dramatic. Apparently the brain transference becomes complete, and Flippy is living now without Hugh, but he keeps Hugh as like his energy victim. Kind of reminds me of what we do in the shadows, like a little vampire-y, and seeing Hugh look so dead is really concerning. Flippy even takes his car and drives away with him. Jimmy follows him in the hovercraft, only to find out that Flippy is trying to throw Hugh off a cliff. Jesus Christ.
That's Jason Bourne.
Jimmy realizes that he just needs to communicate with his dad's brain as opposed to Flippy's, and that maybe he will get to him that way. He starts mentioning ducks, and Flippy gets overpowered by Hugh's passion for them.
Look at all the duckies! Wait till I tell Sugar Booger!
It ends up working, Hugh overpowers Flippy, and everything has worked out. Except we get one last moment at the end where it's revealed that Flippy is still alive, but we never revisit this, so what's the point? If anything, it should have happened in the League of Villains. I would have loved that. But if we had a list for all the villains I wanted to see in the League of Villains versus the ones that ended up being in it, that's a different story. So King of Mars is really interesting because not only did I not remember it, but it had the most character development I've ever seen in a cartoon. Yeah, I was not expecting for Jimmy and Cindy's relationship to be so straightforward and communicated in this, and I was so impressed with how well they did it for a cartoon. King of Mars is a special episode, one of the last in all of Jimmy Neutron. We start off with Jimmy, Sheen, Carl, Cindy, and Libby looking into the sky with Jimmy's new telescope. It's clear that Cindy actually has a crush on him, and she is genuinely making an effort to talk to him. He's a little bit dismissive and very hot and cold with her. It's almost like he's kind of scared of being into her, which I could get as a kid. But it's like, don't reject her like this. She's putting herself out there. Like, you could tell he could reciprocate it, but he's just so ashamed. Jimmy says that she's a distraction, which is kind of offensive, but that makes sense for somebody with an ego that big. Of course he's gonna have an issue with love. And I like that this becomes like the centerpiece for Jimmy's mistakes in this episode that lead to the plot. They notice something on Mars, like a giant gasket was blown off the side of it. Luckily, Jimmy's able to get these pictures with Goddard, and they actually want to figure out what's going on. Unfortunately, all the kids are on Eustace Stritch's territory, that really wealthy rich kid. He has this giant spider-like robot that tries to kick them out, but it does not work. I like how pretentious he acts toward Jimmy. It makes him such an interesting villain. The boys accidentally reveal to him what they just saw on Mars, and Eustace is intrigued. Eustace uses this giant spider-like thing to attack Jimmy, which is totally unfair. Like, just because they're on your property doesn't mean you could assault them, but they destroy the machine, so it's all good. The next day, Jimmy's getting ready to go to Mars to actually figure out what's going on, and he's a lot colder to Cindy. She wants to go to Mars, but he's like, no, you're too distracting, and that essentially translates to I like you too much. I wish he would just say it though, so there's not this much tension. But yeah, he makes an effort to go out to Mars and actually figure out what this power source is. Eustace Stritch actually overhears them, listens in, and decides to go after it himself. Despite the fact this is gonna take 3 days. They get into the hovercraft. Cindy has a good point though, like she saw the whole thing. Why is she not allowed to come, Jimmy? The outfit Cindy wears on the spaceship is surprisingly similar to what she wore in the Tomorrow Boys when she was older, which is kind of interesting. And I just realized the ship that they're taking to Mars is actually the same one that they won at the end of Win, Lose, and Kaboom. Eustace announces to the kids that he is also entering Mars, trying to get to the power source before them. As they all crash onto the surface, they realize that they are stuck on Mars. And of course, Eustace is also stuck. With Jimmy and Cindy's fight escalating more and more and going between love and hate, like it becomes a lot more tension driven. Cindy leaves because she is so frustrated, which I would be too. Like, Jimmy is getting really annoying at this point.
Can I have her squeeze ham?
And Eustace captures her, essentially trying to talk her into working with him. He points out that she's probably unappreciated and should consider turning against him, which she does, which is really crazy. Like, I never expected Cindy to turn on him like that. I thought she was smarter. Eustace puts her in the giant metal machine and she captures him and his friends. But of course, just as quickly, Eustace betrays her, leaving her in the dust. Jimmy is reasonably angry, like this is a horrible thing. She literally just betrayed them. But she admits that it's because he's been treating her bad. Jimmy kind of admits that maybe he's been upset because he does realize he likes Cindy. He doesn't say it directly, but
I just think you're pretty smart and smell nice and you kind of distract me sometimes.
He declares his love for her, essentially. As Jimmy and Eustace go to get the power source, they realize that there's even bigger problems. That this place is already taken up by a civilization of rock people that do not want them taking their resources, which makes sense. They capture the kids in bricks, and I forget how funny Eustace's lines are in these, especially the way he treats his butler. Like, he is like borderline abusive with how he goes about his life. So Jimmy and Eustace essentially have to work together and actually use the power source as a way to get them back home. They make it rain, no pun intended, literally actual rain, and the Twunkie is literally in the background of Sheen's shot right before they leave. This is so funny. I just realized the Twunkie's in like every episode. Defeating all the rock creatures, they're finally able to get back in their ship and head home, and that's kind of how it ends. We get the closure between Jimmy and Cindy where it's like very clear that they both like each other, and it's pretty blatantly stated in this. Of course, they don't expand on it too much, and this is kind of where we're left with them for the rest of the series. Like, they have another moment or two of being being rivals, but I don't really want to count that in their development. I feel like this is the perfect place for them to end on the entire series, but I wish we got to see them together at all. Like, that would have been interesting. Overall, King of Mars is definitely one of the most impressive episodes of Jimmy Neutron. I did not expect it to give me as much as it did. So next we have El Magnifico, and this one is very special because it's about Sheen and his dad, which I never expected to have an episode on, but I'm kind of here for it. Sheen's playing with his Ultra Lord and super into his superheroes, and it's funny to think that his dad really is vying for his attention. Like, usually it's the son with the emotionally distant father, but in this, the father really wants Sheen's approval and is so sensitive about it. And it makes Sheen look a lot colder because he rejects his father constantly. I guess because he looks up to Ultra Lord instead of his dad, which I would be insecure if I was his father too.
Air conditioning's boring. If Ultralord needed cooling, he would shoot freeze charges from his elbows like in episode 212. Ultralord versus the Cajun chefs.
His father essentially is like, I'm a superhero and I've saved the day before. And that superhero they've seen is a movie about him. Obviously the kids don't believe him for a second because this is a ridiculous joke, but he insists it's true. Later we find out that his dad shows up to Jimmy's asking him to help him become a superhero, which is so funny because Sheen, Carl, everybody uses Jimmy for his inventions, and it's getting a little bit out of hand now. But Jimmy is empathetic because he sees that Sheen really doesn't care about him, and that he might disown his father if he finds out he was lying. There's a push and pull here. Like, Sheen is definitely acting pretty aggressive, and his dad is lying, but still.
Everybody, just a little pie-based accident. How long can meringue burn anyway? Am I right?
I can understand a son wanting to respect his father.
Jimmy decides to go through and actually help him, making him the actual El Magnifico. He lifts an entire school bus over Carl, almost killing him, and it's clear that he has superpowers. They all go to the zoo together where Sheen's dad proves to him that he does have these powers, and he is super impressed.
Why didn't you show me your powers before?
Superpowers are like the giant clam. Giant and clam-like, yet so very shy.
Next thing you know, he's using his powers frivolously to impress Sheen, and that's when things go a little bit haywire. He gets really carried away and gets them all into actual dangerous situations that we're not sure Sheen's dad could get them out of. They get stuck in an alligator cage with Carl, Sheen, and Sheen's dad. The dad ends up actually getting them out safely, being a true superhero, and Sheen is happy, which is super funny. This is an episode I never even expected to happen. I mean, I'm glad it's here, but like, I don't remember this.
Air conditioning has certainly made this environment more pleasant.
Wow! Dad, you stopped the gator using just your regular powers.
The next episode is Best in Show, and in this, Jimmy is competing for the best dog in show. Obviously with Goddard, as everybody else has their own pets. Butch and Sheen try to put a worm and fish in the competition, but they're basically like, that's not a dog.
This is my Japanese fighting fish, Yoko.
Very impressive, Butch. One question, shouldn't he be in the water?
I'll be right back.
Me next! Me next! Say hello to Tito, the dancing worm! Watch closely as he does the twist, the Macarena, and the funky chicken.
This worm is not moving.
Which kind of preludes to this. Cindy has Humphrey, which it's been a while since we've seen this guy, and he's a really cute dog, but he's nothing compared to Goddard, who is literally able to fly. Cindy makes the really fair point that Goddard is a robot and not an actual dog. Sure, he's a pet, but it doesn't really count. This episode's really cute because it's like a Goddard episode, which we've never gotten so far. And I guess Goddard has a conscience because when Jimmy's asleep, he's just laying there contemplating his existence, which is really dark. He's upset that they don't call him a real dog, and I feel bad. I don't usually like dogs, but it's cute. LOL! It's so funny because apparently Principal Willoughby is there shouting it, and that's his conscience.
Not a real dog. Not a real dog. Not a real dog.
Goddard ends up running away, which is the saddest thing ever, as he goes into the moonlight. And he calls Jimmy Master, which is so funny. This is the first time we actually get dialogue by Goddard, and it's so weird. You'd be better off with a real dog, like everyone says. Gosh, he's petty. And he decommissioned his tracking device so he could never be found. Oh my gosh. It's like one of those Where's Gary episodes from SpongeBob where we really miss Goddard. It's moments like this that I realize that a pet is a really funny character to add onto a kid's series. like SpongeBob has Gary, Jimmy has Goddard, but Timmy Turner doesn't have anything. I mean, I guess he has Cosmo and Wanda, but they're his fish, and that's not really what they actually are. Goddard ends up having really a lot of fun in the real world, where people are impressed at his skills, and it's really sweet seeing him build his confidence as a robot. For some reason, the cop has more lines than he ever has before.
You put your baby on a wild robot dog? You're going down, Mama.
I didn't put him on it. The dog grabbed my baby.
All right, calm down. I'll call the Air Force and we'll blow him out of the sky.
You can't do that. My baby's on that thing.
Boy, there's just no pleasing you, is there?
Arrests Goddard, essentially. And this guy is so funny while he has Goddard in the car. He is like such a reckless person. I can't believe how much the cops are in this. Like, I had no idea prior to this. Jimmy, Carl, and Sheen are looking for Goddard, but to no avail. He's living his own life. The cop is even going to put him into a recycling unit, which is kind of a metaphor for leaving a baby at a firehouse, and I'm really disturbed at that. Cindy happens to be walking by when Humphrey actually gets away. About to be ran over, Goddard saves him, which is another good Cindy and Jimmy moment. Even though it's not that big of a deal, it's still cute. And Goddard realizes that he has a lot more purpose than just being Jimmy's pet, which is really sweet. The mayor ends up giving him this formal award, and I don't know, it's really cute. It ends with Principal Willoughby one last time.
Celebration song! Kick it, Goody!
My eyes! Okay, this isn't funny anymore. Not that it was funny before. All right, maybe the first time, but much less so the second time, and now it's really getting tiresome and very painful.
And this is just kind of funny. I like that we have an episode about Goddard. Like, I feel like I definitely didn't remember this, but I'm so happy it exists because he's really cute when you think about it. The next episode is called How to Sink a Sub, and this one is so funny. Like, I feel like we have a lot of character-driven episodes and relationship development in this season so far, but this is pure comedy, this episode. I actually had to sit my friends down to watch it because I thought it was so necessary to watch. So we see Jimmy's school teachers all together in this bus flying through space, and we do not know what's going on.
Willoughby, you dick! I told you turn left at the pants outlet!
I'm frightened and nauseated. Where are we?
We're in hyperspace, where no teacher has gone before.
Until Jimmy tells everybody that he sent his teachers away for a week so they would just have free time. Which is kind of messed up, Jimmy. That is like the most dark thing I've ever heard of. Like, what about food? What about survival? Like, they're gonna be gone for a week? Suddenly they take over the school and get to do all this fun stuff. And it kind of reminds me of the movie with the freedom that the kids get. When the parents actually find out that the teachers aren't here, they decide that they all need to step in as substitutes. And this is just essentially a really fun episode where we get to see the parents taking on different roles throughout the school and making the kids' lives torture. Judy starts embarrassing Jimmy in front of the whole class, and I don't know how she has no social awareness. Carl's dad gives the class lessons on how to bathe. Sheen's dad teaches woodshop, and Hugh teaches gym class, but instead of actually doing anything physical, he has the kids just hug each other, which is so funny. Carl's mom is the cafeteria lady, and it has disgusting food. Like, some of the graphics in this show are just downright uncomfortable. Jimmy comes up with a plan to try to get the parents to stop being substitutes by making like this concentrated hormonal substance. Judy takes it away from him during class, and Hugh ends up putting it in all the coffee of the teachers. So Jimmy's plan essentially goes exactly as intended, and the parents transform into really moody teenagers, not wanting anything to do with the kids. They're just running around being reckless, acting like college kids essentially, and the kids start having to be the adults in the situation. They start realizing how annoying their parents are being, and I wonder if this is gonna have them avoid their angsty teen phase. The parents essentially rebel against the kids until the teachers show up heroically. I don't know how they got out of that space void. Oh, it's because they found Jimmy's little crystal in there. I don't know how Jimmy would have not hid that better if he knew they would be stuck in that car for a week. And the teachers come in and they're essentially the superheroes and stop all the parents from being angsty, I guess. Of course, they punish Jimmy because he tried to kill them, and it kind of ends with him doing push-ups. The next episode is Lady Sings the News, and this one is a Libby episode. I like that we're getting like Goddard, Libby, teachers, like everybody's getting their own chance to shine before the series ends. The whole premise about this is how Jimmy is able to manipulate the news. Like, they use green screen at the beginning, and it's so funny to think that normal kids would just do like prank calls, but Jimmy actually green screens his friends onto the local news.
Yes, hello. This just in. I'm not wearing pants under this desk. Repeat, I'm not wearing pants.
Hi. Who wants to see my head spin around?
Well, that's odd. Gotta remember the weather lady being quite so hideous.
Which there has to be laws against that too. While they're in class the next day, a movie producer shows up and is impressed by what they did on the news, which is funny because you would think they would get in trouble for something so invasive, and Cindy points that out too, but they just want to make them famous for this. So they recruit all the main characters to play a part on the news. Now this isn't actually what ends up being the situation, so just stay tuned. Carl does the weather, Sheen does action figures, and Libby does the gossip section called The Word, which is kind of a parody of TMZ. It becomes more Libby focused when she starts outing everybody, including her friends, with their most embarrassing secrets. She becomes super popular on television and getting all this fame and fortune, but everybody starts hating her. Like Miss Fowl gets annoyed, Sam gets annoyed, and she's essentially taking on this like really corrupt journalist face, making everybody kind of scared of her, and she keeps revealing her friend's secrets, and Libby is really unlikable in this episode. Like, I can't believe how rude she is. Like, she doesn't even think about it. They try to con her by using the moment where she's spying on Carl to make it look like he communicates with aliens, so that way, like, when she reports it, she'll seem crazy. So she does, she reports it, and an angry mob tries to kill Carl because of it. Jesus! When Libby learns it's fake, she realizes how dangerous her words actually are, because the entire town is about to cancel Carl and his life. Surprisingly enough, Jimmy actually kisses Cindy on the lips. I had no idea this happened. And could we see that back one more time? Like, I don't remember this at all.
Forgive me, guys? What the heck?
I guess things worked out okay after all. Come on, let's go home.
Hello, guys? Wait up! Okay, you're coming back, right?
But that is kind of a big deal, especially since this is one of the last episodes. Now it's time for one final farewell to Jimmy Neutron with one of my musical songs, in another fanfic style from 2005.
All summer long, it's Friday night movies on Nicktoons.
Attention, Wackerville! This is an emergency!
Friday, Jimmy Neutron shows up on the wrong night for a fair fight.
I'm talking life or death situation, understand?
When he goes up against his evil enemies, things are gonna get messy.
Let's eat him!
Oh, now you're just being disgusting.
Battle they want, then a battle they're gonna get!
Don't miss Jimmy Neutron, The League of Villains, Friday at 9 on Nicktoons.
So the series finale of Jimmy Neutron, whew, it is quite a ride. I gotta be honest, until viewing it, I never realized how many dots were secretly placed across the Jimmy Neutron series and brought back up in this episode to kind of draw this whole conclusion and make the show feel more intentional. Despite the episodic nature, Fairly Odd Parents never really got an ending, SpongeBob's never gonna get an ending, so we're gonna dive into why Jimmy Neutron is the best series finale of Nicktoons. So let's get into it. What's up, everybody? It's Johnny 2000, covering TV, movie, media, and so much more. We're going to be diving into the series finale of Jimmy Neutron. It was always meant to be the last episode, and you'll see why. So let's jump into what actually happens. We start by looking at McSpanky's in space. It's destroyed, and it's being taken over by these Martian dudes. This trio of Martian dudes. King Goobot is writing a letter to kind of bring them all together in a really cool opening sequence. So this was the unofficial series finale of Jimmy Neutron, and you could tell, like, I feel like it should have ended this way, but unfortunately, the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour ended up taking over. It is the second special that doesn't have a custom opening after the Eggpire Strikes Back. I don't know if you noticed, but Ooblar, Evil Jimmy, Dr. Moist, Meldar Prime, Gortox the Irritable, Buford, Seymour, and the Nanobots aren't a part of the League of Villains. The only reason Ooblar isn't involved is because apparently King Goobot mentioned,
"And this is my assistant, Ooblar." Oh, oopsie. I forgot. I traded Oobla to the Bogosians for some sulfur butter.
Which is kind of dark. Last we saw Professor Calamitous was when he was in Lights Camera Action, posing as the film director. Beautiful Gorgeous was in My Big Fat Spy Wedding. The Junkman was from that Junkman Returns episode with Brobot. Eustace Stretch, which is the snotty rich kid from that second season episode. And Grandma Taters, with the three Martians being Zix, Travolton, and T. The villains spend most of their time squabbling among each other. In particular, I really thought this was the coolest episode ever. Like, being able to combine the lore of all the episodic episodes and kind of combine it, like, it definitely makes for a good episode, especially when it's a villains only scenario. Like, that is cool. That's genius. Boy genius, I would say. I remember seeing this episode in passing, but barely paid it much attention. I remember it aired a lot, but I didn't ever view it as the series finale. I definitely would have tried to remember it a lot more. So we start with Jimmy trying to get one of his friends to volunteer and test his machine. Clearly not worried if they might die. I don't know why Jimmy doesn't care. Maybe because he's in the 5th grade? That's the only way I can justify his moral perspective here. And they mentioned the Love Potion episode.
Perhaps you recall Love Potion 976-J.
Oh, I do. It made you fall in love with the first person you saw. Sheen fell for Libby, Jimmy fell for Cindy, and I fell in love with the most beautiful woman in the... Nothing.
Confirming that the writers do in fact keep track of the relationship progression. Everybody seems to be pushing Cindy and Jimmy together because it's fair. It's like the Stranded episode definitely solidified everything. And it's just cool how the writers are able to casually recall lore just through a couple bits of dialogue. Like, it's very good writing. Jimmy has this thing he keeps saying throughout this special.
People don't change.
Which is really interesting because obviously an episode about villains needs to be about that. So the kids want to use the Nmen packets, which is kind of interesting because obviously we had that Nmen episode. Feels like season 3 is a lot more better at being serialized, and all of this is culminating in one final scene. In the lair, Goobot is the one who's pairing everybody up together, and it just happens to be that nobody likes each other.
I gotta be with the old broad? That stinks!
I could just eat you up!
And maybe I will.
Which is so funny because they're villains, they have bad intentions, and they can't even work together. Like, that's so funny. And of course, the Martians get into constant arguments. A lot of distrust going on between these guys. We don't get to hear the master plan, but King Goobot keeps talking about one, and we see the villains kind of go off into separate sectors, and I guess it's up to us to figure out what is about to happen, which I kind of like. I like the anticipation. And it's so funny that we're following the villain's perspective, because it's like, out of the first 10 minutes, we only see Jimmy and his friends for like 4 of them. So a part of this so-called plan, we find Eustace at the candy bar trying to talk to Cindy.
I thought I would grace your greasy little eatery with my sparkling presence.
But he's pretty pretentious, pretty sexist. He's not really a good kid. He's just snobby and rich. Kind of reminds me of Remy Bucksaplenty from Fairly Odd Parents. He plays a CD for everybody, and they're suddenly hypnotized into not being able to stop dancing, which is kind of a funny bit.
I'm dancing! Somebody call my mom!
So Jimmy is about to throw away the Nmen powers, and the audience is probably freaking out because we know he's about to get ganged up on, but he doesn't. So there's a lot of tension with Jimmy alone in his lab. But next thing you know, Jimmy's lab is sprayed with this really weird goop, and the Junkman ship arrives at his house. I still don't know what the plan is. It feels like it's going on for so long, and I just want to know. Jimmy runs into his friends who can't stop dancing. I don't know why Libby brought the stereo. Obviously, it's not going to help the situation.
I'm getting pretty good.
Jimmy ends up being kidnapped, and the villains kind of surround him in their ship. He is completely powerless here.
King Goobot, Baby Eddie, Grandma Taters, the Junkman, Eustace, Professor Calamitous, Beautiful Gorgeous, Zix, Travolta, and T!
How come he said my name last?
The friends end up stopping the music, and Cindy, Libby, and everybody are able to stop dancing, eventually. Meanwhile, the villains have a really unfair court and put Jimmy on trial. He's charged by the Goobot for stopping evil, which I didn't realize was a crime. He is not in a good position here. Sheen shows up because apparently he was the only one able to stow away on the ship and save Jimmy, but clearly he's trapped too. I don't know how he's gonna help this.
Sheen, please tell me you're not alone.
Okay, I'm not alone.
Where's everybody else?
Huh?
You just said you're not alone.
'Cause you told me to.
And he hits on Beautiful Gorgeous one more time before they're thrown off into jail. The baby is really funny. I completely forgot about this character because he's in such a little amount of episodes, but it's the idea of Boss Baby before Boss Baby came out is just cool to me. We see one of the Martians constantly writing in his diary because he doesn't feel appreciated by his Martian brethren, and it's kind of sad. He's the one that's in charge of keeping Jimmy and Sheen behind bars. So Goobot and all the villains are trying to figure out what to do next. So they had this elaborate plan, but didn't really think of how they were gonna go about getting revenge on him, which is kind of ridiculous.
Trap him to a bed of spikes!
Dip the spikes in poison!
Put ice cubes down his back!
Especially since Professor Calamitous isn't the one leading the way. You can't keep relying on that being the downfall to the villains. Sheen starts talking to the Martian, and they're basically having therapy together. It's really funny, and it's actually kind of sweet.
So T, what's it like being a big lizardy space bandit?
You making fun of me?
No.
Cause I'll squish your head!
I'm not honest. I just really want to know.
Jimmy ends up warning Sheen.
He's evil, and once evil, always evil.
Well, maybe he could change.
People don't change.
Once again, like he said earlier. But he eats his words when the Martian allows them to go, wanting to be a good person and not a villain anymore. I like that Sheen is the one kind of vouching for him, because clearly it's like, of course you wouldn't trust him, but if Sheen says he's really giving it an honest try, like Jimmy should believe him. Jimmy manages to hack Carl's computer and send a message for help, telling him to bring the Nmen packets. And of course, we're not in on Jimmy's plan either. Why can't we just know the plans? Carl gathers everybody like Cindy, Libby, and friends, and they all go to Jimmy's lab, and he's kind of the only one that's saying like, don't touch stuff, and they get into his rocket. He was given specific instructions not to let Cindy drive, but clearly she takes over. They jump in the rocket with the Nmen packets and head off to space. Jimmy's parents end up trying to follow them, which is super dangerous, guys. Do not do that. And they fall into Jimmy's lab, which is so funny. I've never seen them in Jimmy's lab. Like, dude, this is the most impressive thing ever, and these are your parents. Like, I wish they appreciated a little bit more. They notice that Jimmy's invention from earlier is there, the one that he was trying to find a test dummy for, and accidentally activate it, sending literally all of Retroville into this time vortex, the past. I love how whenever they do time travel, it usually is going back to the past, and they use this same greenery and dinosaurs to show it. So Jimmy's still skeptical that T is not going to change. He's the Martian we're talking about.
You said we were friends!
We're friends! We're friends!
See, Jimmy? He's changed. Earlier today you said people don't change, but T changed, even though he's not a people so much as an alien lizard guy, but my point is...
Okay, I get it!
But they managed to get into an escape pod together, even seeing their friends in Jimmy's rocket nearby. Of course, he gets mad because Cindy's driving.
We're heading back to... Cindy's driving my rocket?
And these have gotta be the only kids in space passing each other. Like, I get seeing each other on the football field or at a school dance, but I bet these are the only 5 fifth graders you could catch in space. The villains end up stopping the rocket, causing Jimmy and friends to crash. Suddenly T is super clingy, and it's so funny to see him like this. I feel like being a good person to him is just being extra sensitive.
You risking your skins to save your friends? I'm gonna weep openly. Give me a tissue, fool!
Meanwhile, the mayor is trying to settle everybody down about being thrown back in a time vortex, but everybody's like going insane and kind of adapting to the new life. Even Sam has created a candy bar, but with rocks, which means they're going like completely nutso. So Jimmy and Sheen run back into Carl, Cindy, and Libby on the planet, and they still don't really trust T. The Junkman ship shows up, and everybody has to run back. But the villains end up surrounding them in this final showdown. This part's like kind of epic. Jimmy convinces Goobot that the Nmen powder is like this poison, so he's like, yeah, go eat that poison. And they do, obviously, to activate their powers. But, plot twist, the powers are wrong and everybody has a different power. So we get this quick montage of everybody not knowing how to use their powers, and the villains just think they're going insane.
They're slowly going mad! Oh, why didn't I bring my camera?
Which, they're not wrong. This whole special feels so much like plot, like thing after thing happening, not a lot of character development, except for the whole villain storyline and Jimmy insisting that people don't change. Like, I like that that's kind of the gimmick, but it doesn't feel like it sums up the entire show, more like it sums up this entire episode's premise. But it feels a lot quicker than it should be. So the villains realize they have a lot more in common than Jimmy's demise, and they are able to escape, going back to Retroville, but uh-oh, Retroville is in the time vortex. Next thing you know, the entire town is being attacked by prehistoric dinosaurs, and they only have 5 more minutes of their powers, so they need to help the town. Oof, that's intense. The villains even arrive, and the dinosaurs attack them too. T ends up being worried about his villain friends, and asks Jimmy and his friends to help.
I need your help! Please, please, please!
Clearly everybody's kind of against it, but we have this kind of message that in order to be good, you have to do good things. It's not necessarily about who you're good toward and the actions you take, which is a really cool message. T asks the villains why they even want to be villains, and nobody even knows how to answer, which is so funny. I feel like being evil is just so shallow in this world.
Well, because
not. After they save the villains, Jimmy gets in trouble, and the villains end up having to be the one to have to save them. But of course, they don't want to. And we're at the edge of their seats seeing if the villains will make the right choice, which is a great plot point to have. Eventually they do, and they save Jimmy, completely reversing all the damage they just had done. I mean, I guess we're not gonna forget that they tried to murder these kids, but they did a good thing. It's just a step toward being good people, not necessarily a turnaround. So the villains spare Jimmy, and Jimmy spares the villains, and everybody's kind of getting along now. And Cindy tells Jimmy to get rid of the Betty Quinlan photos that he has in his lab, which is the closest thing we have to their relationship developing a little bit further. So then the candy bar is open to celebrate as they bring the town back to normal, while the villains are stuck in prehistoric time.
You think you're scary, pal? Huh? You think you're some sort of big shot? Well, say hello to my little friend, 5-day-old Diaper!
And that's kind of how it ends. Yeah, the Jimmy Neutron series finale is just so hidden and lost in these production codes that we never got to look at it as it is. And even though it seems to be very plot-based, like characters going from one place to another, not a lot of development or morals being tested up front until we get to like the latter half, but it's all in all like probably the best episode to conclude the series. I think the writers knew exactly what they were doing when they pointed out being able to call out the lore of the third season, make everything kind of work together was such a great way to wrap this up, and more than expected from a kid's cartoon. But what did you guys think? Do you feel like this served as a deserving finale? Does this give Jimmy Neutron justice to end on a note like this? Leave your comments below, and thank you guys so much for watching. This is Johnny 2000, and have a great day.